Thank you so much. This is going to be 3 hours and 45 minutes of me talking. I'll let the excitement die down. All right. So what first and foremost is a filibuster? Well, the filibuster that I promised had to do based on my number of subscribers back by the end at the end of November of last year. For every 100 subscribers, I was going to do an hour of talking, and then for every number of subscribers less than another 100, I do according to this. Up to 25 subscribers, 15 minutes. 50 subscribers, 30 minutes. 75 subscribers, 45 minutes. And then, of course, it'd be another 100, another hour. But I only got to 381, so it would be 3 hours and 45 minutes of me talking. A Senate filibuster is an attempt to talk a bill to death. It is something an opponent of the filibuster of the bill in front of the Senate does not like. And so what they do is they talk and talk. Once they have the floor, they can talk and talk and talk as long as they want and try to derail the bill or get some changes made to the bill so that the people who don't like it will let it continue or it's killed altogether. So 3 hours and 45 minutes. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much. First of all, thanks to my family, my wife, kids, and grandkids. I hope they're watching. And then my family, yes, my wife is watching, and my family and my daughter, and everyone else is out of the house. But anyway, and so my friends, former colleagues, and anyone else who happens to want a good time on a Saturday afternoon and early evening. Thank you so much for joining us. My filibuster is only going to be 3 hours and 45 minutes. There are some records in the annals of Senate history that of how long the filibusters are. Now, let me tell you about the filibuster. You can talk about anything you want. I could read to you from the phone book if I want. I could read to you from the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and we may do that. I've got some things I want to talk about. Who knows what else will come up? Maybe some comments that come in from you, the viewers, will take me off in a different direction. But I've got a few things I want to talk about, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about the filibuster a little bit. I want to tell you about some of the longer filibusters in history and the records. So Senator Huey Long, a Democrat from Louisiana, back in 1935, spoke for more than 15 hours. He read from the Washington Telephone Directory. Remember telephone directories? He gave his colleagues recipes for pot liquor cornbread and turnip greens. In 1947, Glenn Taylor, a Democrat out of Idaho, used more than 8 hours talking about his children, Wall Street, fishing, and baptism. The current record holder for a filibuster, 24 hours, 18 minutes, Senator Strom Thurmond, a Republican out of South Carolina. He tried to end what later became the Civil Rights Act of 1957. So that's what I'm up against. I will not be going that long. 3 hours, 45 minutes is about all I can do. And who knows, if this goes well, we may do it more regularly. All right, now, some rules for the filibuster. Rules for the filibuster. I can speak indefinitely, as long as I can talk and talk and talk. I can hold the floor, as they say, and I can speak. I have to remain standing. Okay, I have to remain standing. I cannot lean on anything. I cannot sit down. I have to remain standing the entire time. I am forbidden from eating or drinking. So, drinking, eating, oops, bad toss. Anyway, I can take questions from other senators, which would be you, and if anything comes through that I can address, I will. So again, that's what the rules are. Oh, and one of the biggest, I can't go to the bathroom. I can't go to the bathroom no matter what. And if I do have to go, I leave the floor of the Senate. My filibuster is over, and then the Senate can continue on to other business. So here we are, and here we go. Now, before we get started, I need a monitor. And so I have my iPad set up over here. So I'm going to log in to my channel so I can watch, see what you can see, make sure everything's good. Let me go. 4 people are watching. 4 people are watching. Wow, my family's in. Okay. Let's see. All right, I think I'm in, and it's going to show up here. All right. I realize, remember, I am a one-man show here. I do have to adjust the camera because it's a little bit off-center, so I'm going to take care of that. But I will keep talking, so you don't think I've left you. I'm, well, you can see me in front of the camera now, and there you go. That's a little better. All right. Note under things you should do before you go live. How come I'm not waiting for government? All right, well, we'll see. Let me ask my technical advisor. Yes, you can see me? Okay, all right, we're good. It's taking a little while to come up on my iPad, and we'll go from there. Okay, government. Wow. Big subject matter. We could talk about it for more than 3 hours and 45 minutes, but we're going 3 hours and 45 minutes, and so we'll see what we can cover. First of all, I want to talk about, in one of my last videos back in November, I've been a little lazy, and in one of my last videos, I talked about how the president's message. 3 months ago, I put out a video saying, I want to read to you the president's words. A lot of people have trouble with the way Trump speaks, his voice, his nasty tweets, etc., etc. But I wanted to read his words and see if they made sense, if people liked him. I asked people to get their liberal friends, their liberal colleagues, their liberal siblings, and listen to just the words and see what's wrong with it. So here are the words that the president spoke at a State of the Union address last year. All Americans are rightly disturbed by the large number of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service, try this again, there's no editing here, all right? The public services they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the commission headed by a former Congresswoman, Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it. Okay? Is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with what he said? Okay, I know a lot of you right now, especially if you're more on the liberal persuasion, think that that Trump is Hitler and the ICE agents are the brown shirts and they're going, and upsetting American lives, this and that, by what they're doing. But the president laid out precisely what he wanted, what he said was important. And yet, some people have trouble with it. Mainly, it's the way President Trump speaks. And so what it is, what I just read to you was not from President Trump. It was from President Bill Clinton in his State of the Union address in 1995. We've been playing this game for 30 years. 1995. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are a nation of laws. It is wrong and self-defeating for a nation to permit the kind of abuse our immigration laws have seen in recent years. We've been playing with this for longer than 30 years, but a much beloved Democrat president, a much beloved president of the 1990s. Okay, he became president at a good time. We were, the Cold War was over. The economy was improving. We had budget surpluses for a little while. We had a Democrat president, Republican Congress, and they managed to cut the deficit. I'm sorry, have surpluses for a few years. And so, and this guy, again, a Democrat, saying basically the same thing that Donald Trump has said, didn't pose a problem back then, did it, liberals? No, because he was one of yours. Okay, so what's happening is we are making decisions, we are making values based on personality rather than policy. Now, policy, multifaceted, obviously, not easy to distill a 1,000-page, 1,200-page bill into a few sentences. But it is what it is, and I just wanted to show y'all, to show my audience, that some people are being two-sided, two-faced, forked tongue, and they are supporting anything their guy does, and not supporting things that the enemy does. And so Bill Clinton was right. Bill Clinton was right. President Trump is right. Illegal immigration must be stopped. People who came here illegally, I understand why they've come. I do. I understand that in Mexico, you think we're corrupt? Mexico makes us look like rookies. We are so corrupt. We are so corrupt that I'm getting shown something and I got a light in my face and I can't read it from back there. Okay. Only 3 hours, 35 minutes to go. All right. Mexico makes us look like pristine angels as far as government corruption goes. Mexico, you have the filthy rich or the dirt poor, very little middle class. And if you're born filthy rich, you're probably going to die filthy rich. If you're born dirt poor, you're probably going to die dirt poor. So I understand why the dirt poor come to this country to work. I do. It is, I tend to think most of us do the same thing. If we could not find meaningful work that paid us enough to support our families, and there was a country, the next country over, that had opportunity, that had jobs, that we could make a good living and help support our families, I think most of us would try to do that. So I understand why they do it. However, so there's a humanitarian side and there's a legal side. Humanitarian, yes, you got to feed your family. Yes, you don't want your kids starving. Yes, you don't want your kids to grow up malnourished. But at the same time, there's the law side, the legal side. We've got to know who's here. We have to know who's in our country, why they're in our country, and make it legal for them to come and work and go back. If that's what we want to work out. In the early 2000s, I can't remember the year right offhand, President Bush thought about working on a system where there was a guest worker program where these people who want to come work, want nothing more than to come work. Obviously, there are people who are into illegal things, illegal drugs, human trafficking, sex trafficking, all these different things that are horrible, and these people are not part of what I'm talking about. But the people who want to come work, the people who want to come here, make some money, send some back for their families so they can live a decent life in Mexico, President Bush proposed a guest worker program that would do that, and it was met with from the other side. And so what we have now is a system we have whereby we have to allocate so many resources, so much time, and pay so much money to secure our border so we have some idea who's here. As far as those who have been here, came here illegally and are still here, I know it's tough, especially those who are, law-abiding. Otherwise law-abiding, other than coming in illegally, but law-abiding. It's a tough situation. And what about the kids? Well, let me ask you this: if you go to Disney World in Florida, and let's say they open at 9 in the morning and close at midnight, and somehow you get in illegally. Good luck. But somehow you get in illegally, and you get in at 9:15, and it's 7:30 in the evening, and you're found out that they find out that you were there and you didn't pay to get in. Are they gonna just let you stay the rest of the night? Are they gonna let you stay the rest of the evening and enjoy the closing fireworks show? No, they're not. They're gonna remove you, as they should, because you did not get in legally. And so that's the way it's got to be with immigrants who came here illegally. You don't get to the end of the line. You don't get to stay because, oh, well, you beat the system, so you get to stay. No, you got to go. And sadly, it's going to hurt a lot of people. Now, what about the children that came with them? Well, here's what I say. The children who came with them didn't have a choice. The children who came with him didn't have much of a choice. They were brought by their parents, and they've grown up in the United States. That's all they've ever known. So here's what I suggest. If I was in charge and I could make the rules, here's what I would suggest. The people that came here as children, the children that came here with their parents illegally, whenever, if they're over 18, they can stay. They've got to pay a fee. They've got to get in the back of the line for citizenship, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just bam, you're in, you're a citizen. So you got to go through a process. But those that are over 18, okay, you got to go through a process in order to become a citizen. Those that are under 18, who came with parents that are illegal, will have to go back with those parents. Again, it's not the children's fault. It's not the children's fault that their parents brought them illegally. So if they got here as a child and they're over 18 now, they can stay, but have to go through a process, pay a fine, et cetera, et cetera. Those children that came here illegally with their parents and are still under 18 would have to go back with their parents to wherever they came from. Okay, I think that's the fairest, most equitable way to deal with this. And so if anyone in Washington is watching, could you please make it happen, all right? So another thing that has bothered me about the whole debate on illegal immigration, the media and the Democrats' obsession with, oh, well, we're separating families. I know. It does happen. That is that's the consequence of breaking the rules. If I have my kids in the car, or my kids are grown, if I have my grandkids in the car and I'm stopped for drunk driving, they're going to separate me and the kids. All right, they're going to separate me and the kids. The kids aren't going to be going to the slammer with me. They're going to be separated from me. So it happens to everyone, not just in the immigration debate, not just in the immigration thing that's going on, in the immigration enforcement, in the immigration idea of everyone has to do things legally. Okay, so that bothers me because I understand it's traumatic, but as a parent, you have to understand that's one of the consequences you may be putting on your children when you do things illegally. Let me ask my technical advisor here. I still don't have a picture here. I'm still good. Can you see if y'all can get me a picture on this? Let me see if you can get me a picture on that. Just cancel that and see if you can give me a picture and bring it back. All right, because I want to see what y'all can see. All right, I have an idea, again, for anyone listening that can make this happen. I am a conservative. I am someone who believes in the Constitution. I'm someone who believes that the Constitution is not living. It was set in place, and it is what it is until it's amended. There's no flexibility in the Constitution. There's no, well, it could mean this, it could mean that. Now, our founding fathers, if you want to go back to the history of things, well, that was quick. Boy, don't I feel the fool? Thank you. All right. All right, so now I have a picture. Okay, now I have a picture of what y'all are seeing. So that'll help me. All right. So if you go back in history and think about what our founding fathers tried to do. Before the Constitution, before the U.S. Constitution, when we got our independence from Great Britain, there was our first true national government called the Articles of Confederation. Now, the Articles of Confederation were much closer to what our founding fathers thought was right. Our founding fathers wanted a severely limited government. They would roll over, they're probably rolling over in their graves right now. Well, probably not, they don't have muscle anymore. But if they could, they'd be rolling around in their graves seeing what we've become, basically limitless federal government that we have created, especially since the Great Depression and Franklin Roosevelt. But the Articles of Confederation were so limiting on the national government's power that it was ineffective, that it didn't work. It couldn't solve any problems. It couldn't do anything to make the whole system work smoothly and cleanly. And so that's why they had to go back. And remember, they were first going to they first wanted to go to I'm sorry, a message popped up and it threw me off. In the Articles of Confederation, this is if your boss said, write your job description that you want. Whatever you write is what your job description will be. Okay, corner office, work 10 to 2 with a 2-hour lunch and 8 weeks vacation a year, 25 personal holidays, et cetera, what you want, right? And that's going to go in place. Do you think you'd be a very effective employee? Do you think you would be very, have a meaningful role in the organization? No, you wouldn't, because it doesn't address the reality. So the Articles of Confederation was very, very limited, okay? So that's what our founding fathers first wanted. For instance, just to pass a simple law, okay? There were 13 states, right? 13 states. And that's what a confederation is, an alliance of independent states that give certain powers to the central government. And our founding fathers realized it wasn't working, so that's why they went to the Constitutional Convention. The whole goal of the Constitutional Convention was just to revise the Articles of Confederation. No one talked about getting rid of it. It was just to revise what they had. They loved what they had, the ideas anyway. They loved what they had, but it just wasn't working. So they thought, let's revise the Articles of Confederation, and we'll go from there. So the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Well, let's talk about the structure first. It was a unicameral legislature, one house legislature, all right? Only one state has a state legislature that's unicameral. Anyone know what it is? Anyone in the comments? Anyone? You know, if you saw the video I talked about this, you'd know. So anyway, it shows why you should watch my videos. In the Articles of Confederation, states were represented equally. I don't care how big you were, how small you were. I don't care how much population you had, how little population you had, how much money your state had, how little money your state had. You were equal. Okay. Remember, the states had a rebellion against a government that was treating them badly, not listening to them, to their representation, and so they wanted to make sure they were equally represented. So that's how it was set up. There was no executive or judicial branch of government. Those were handled by committees of Congress. So the legislative branch handled the executive branch and judicial branch of government, or I guess concerns of government. And so Congress basically had all the power. They could do most things national governments could do. The states agreed to obey the acts of Congress. Hardly ever happened. But the states said, yeah, we'll do it. We'll agree. We'll agree. All right. And to supply funds and troops needed for the new national government. Well, after the Revolutionary War, our states, some of them states were in very bad shape, and they needed money and their manpower to rebuild their states. So they didn't come close to supplying what the national government needed. So a new national government was needed. And so they met in Philadelphia to revise the Articles of Confederation. So the Articles of Confederation, what needed revision? Well, it was weak. There was one vote for each state regardless of size. That wasn't fair to the states with the most population. And so that was a weakness. Congress was powerless to lay and collect taxes. Okay, powerless to lay and collect taxes. How are you going to get money from people voluntarily? How many of you watching right now, if taxes weren't taken out of your check, because it has to be, right? How many of you would voluntarily, there's no penalty for not doing it, how many of you would voluntarily send taxes in? How many saints are out there and would do that? Probably not many, right? There's a few, I'm sure, but not many. All right, so Congress is powerless to regulate foreign and interstate commerce. Congress couldn't come up with trade deals with other nations, and even commerce or trade among the states. States did their own thing. They printed their own money. They had, what's Georgia famous for? What fruit is Georgia famous for? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'll tell you. Peaches. Georgia peaches, right? And if a peach farmer in Georgia wants to take some peaches up to, I don't know, New York, New Jersey, and he has to go through South Carolina, North Carolina, the way things were with the Articles of Confederation, he could be taxed every time he crossed the state line. Okay, he could be taxed every time he crossed the state line. And so it was a mess. And so they needed to do something to revise the Articles and make them a little more effective. Also, there was no executive to enforce the acts of Congress. Congress say, it's against the law to do this. Who's going to enforce it? No one. There's no national court system. If there's a dispute between Georgia and South Carolina, if you fight it out in Georgia court, Georgia's going to win. If you fight it out in South Carolina court, South Carolina's going to win. So there's no neutral third party for disputes between states. To amend the Articles of Confederation, to change the Articles of Confederation, all 13 states had to agree. All 13 states had to agree. Good luck. Remember back when you were in high school? Those of you who are not in high school? Back in high school, what was a typical Friday night like, right? When nothing, there was no party going on, no dance, whatever. You get together with your friends, and you're sitting at their house, their apartment, whatever the case may be. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And that went on for 15, 20 minutes. And finally, you decide, let's see a movie. All right, let's go do that. What movie? I don't know. What do you want to see? I don't know. What do you want to see? I don't. And that went on for another 15, 20 minutes before everyone grudgingly or happily agreed to a movie. All right, so that's, and then it's after the movie, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? Good luck getting 13 states with different socioeconomic systems and players and economic interests. Good luck getting all 13 to agree to revise or to amend the Articles of Confederation. All right, almost virtually impossible. Just to pass a simple law. Just to pass a simple law. All right, it's a math class. I thought you were tuned into government. No, we're going to do some math. 13 states. What's a majority of 13? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? That would be 7. So a simple majority just to pass a law would be 7 states. Nope. The Articles of Confederation made it even more difficult just to pass a simple law. 9 out of 13 states. 9 out of 13 states were needed to ratify or okay a law. Okay. Finally, the Articles were only a firm legal friendship. There was nothing binding them together, and so anyone could leave anytime they wanted. A confederation is nothing more than an alliance of independent states. And so, obviously, this was not working. And so they went to Philadelphia in 1787 to revise the Articles of Confederation, and then we ended up with the U.S. Constitution. So I think you can see from their original intent of such a limiting document on the national government, I think you can see what they really wanted, which is a very limited government. Do we have a limited government today? Can anyone out there with a straight face and without crossing their fingers behind their back, can anyone say we have a limited government? I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. I don't think anyone out there says we have a limited government. Indeed, there are some who says, no, it should be bigger. Really? How much bigger? How much bigger can it get? $1 trillion budgets, trillions in debt, trillions of deficit spending every year. How much bigger do you want? And that's the big question that faces us in every election, that faces us every time there's a debate. What is government's role in our life? You have some people who, where's my paper? Oh, here we go. You have some people that think government is too small and some that think it's too big. I did a video on the political spectrum and where you might fall on it back in on September 18th, 2024. So if you've not seen that, you should go see it and see how the political spectrum falls. I'll go over it briefly here with you. Remember, I'm a one-man show. I have no one putting graphics in, etc. So just go watch that video if you want to see this in more detail. Starting at the very far left of the political spectrum, you have what we know as communism, which is total government control of the political and economic system of a country. Total government control. Can anyone give me an example of a country where communism has been successful? Oh, the great living conditions in Cuba, Soviet Union, North Korea, North Vietnam, back when there was North and South, right? Any of these countries, all of Eastern Europe that was under the Soviets' thumb after the war, after the World War II and during the Cold War. All these countries, where was it so successful that we should try to emulate that? Oh, I know what it is. They just didn't have the right people. They weren't smart enough. They weren't good enough. They didn't know how to implement communism to make it work for everyone. Kind of like Animal Farm. All right, so on the far left, you have communism. You go a little bit more to the right. Now, as I'm looking at myself, I'm looking that it's going left to right. It may be mirrored on yours. I don't know. Let me see. No, it looks good. Okay. There's a little delay from what I see on my camera into what is showing up on YouTube. So on the far left is communism. You go a little further to the right, you have socialism. Some government control over sectors of the economy, and but it's mainly some of our greatest allies are socialist countries, and so it's not totally incompatible with what we have in this country here. However, let's talk about socialist countries. Let's talk about what was the last great invention that came out of a socialist country. Oh yeah, I can't think of one either. All right, I'm not saying they don't have some. I just can't think of any off the top of my head. So socialism is heavy taxation, lots of benefits. Free university, free healthcare. Right? Nothing is free. There's a saying: there ain't no such thing as a free lunch, and there's not. Some people in socialist countries pay some of the highest wage earners pay 50 to 60% of their income in taxes for all these freebies. Free. Oh, we have free healthcare in my country. No, you don't. I have free university education. No, you don't. You've been brainwashed into believing it's free while they're taking chunks and chunks out of your paycheck. Okay? Now, what if I don't have any kids and no one's going to go to university? Okay? I just think, why should I pay when I'm not going to benefit from it? Or what if, I've been very lucky in my life. I'll admit I'm lucky and blessed. Other than being born, and other than back in 2022, I had a blood clot in my leg. Other than those two times, I've never been in the hospital. Okay? That's knocking on wood. Thanks to God, I've never been in the hospital other than those two times. So if I paid those taxes all those years, I feel like I wouldn't have gotten my money's worth. Okay? So these free, all these freebies are paid for big time. And so getting back to the political spectrum, you have communism on the far left, and you have socialism. Then keep going, you have the middle of the road. That's where our political parties line up. Democrats political left or middle left, Republicans middle right, and there is some overlap in the middle. There are some Democrats who are more conservative than some Republicans. Some Democrats in the South are more conservative than some Republicans in the Northeast, okay, and vice versa. Okay, so you continue on the political spectrum. Then you have libertarians, and libertarians believe in very little government, basically judges, police, judges, and juries. And that's about it. Libertarians, maximum amount of personal freedom. A libertarian believes something like this. Helmet laws are unconstitutional. Helmet laws should not be enforced on adults. And we're going to talk about adults, not kids, but adults. Seatbelt laws should not be enforced on adults, just children. Okay? If the libertarian decides not to wear their seatbelt and they go flying through the windshield at 70 miles an hour and they happen to survive, okay? In the libertarian world, there is no free healthcare. There is no, you just walk away from your financial obligations. No, they're going to come after you the rest of your life for that money. If you're drugs, there should be no drug laws according to libertarians. If I choose to do drugs, that's my choice, my business, and as long as I'm not hurting anyone, leave me alone. Okay? Sounds good, right? Sounds good to have personal freedom, not the drugs, but personal freedom. But the consequences of your personal freedom, when you take it too far and you lose your job because of drug use, and you are out on the road, out on the streets, and you are hungry and you are homeless, okay? There's no social programs to help you, okay? Basically, libertarians believe the only thing government should get involved in is when someone infringes on my rights or I infringe on theirs. That's basically it, okay? Everything else should be left to the private sector. So you have communism, socialism, libertarianism, and on the far right you have anarchy. No government at all. Survival of the fittest, the biggest, the baddest, the ones with the most weapons, the ones with the most guns, the ones with the most tanks are the people who survive. Everyone else is just taken advantage of. So if you want more information on that, you could go to the Political Spectrum video on September 18th, 2024 on this very channel. Some other things that have been bothering me, and I finally get a chance to talk about them. And if you're bored, it's okay. I'm a teacher. I talk to students who are bored all the time. Does it stop me? No. So I'll keep talking, you keep listening. How about that? All right. One thing that concerns me right now as a conservative is the makeup of the Supreme Court. To me, it's the conservative bent on the Supreme Court is not secure enough. And I say that because Clarence Thomas, who at this right now is probably 78 or 79 years old. He's very conservative. And I think if he's listening, if Clarence Thomas is listening, Your Honor, I respectfully urge you to retire at the end of this term in June so that the Senate, which is now controlled by the Republicans, can confirm your replacement appointment before the midterm elections, because there's a chance, hope it doesn't happen, there's a chance the Democrats could take over. And if that's the case, good luck getting another conservative jurist confirmed on the Supreme Court. It's just not going to happen if the Democrats take over. So Clarence Thomas is probably 78 or 79. Samuel Alito is probably 76, 77, maybe 78. Depends on their birthday and what time of the year this is, et cetera, et cetera. And the rest, Sonia Sotomayor is probably 73-ish. She can retire too if she wants. John Roberts is probably 72-ish. I'm looking at a paper I drew up or I printed up for a video I did a while back about this. And so John Roberts probably 72, 73. Elena Kagan, who's another liberal, is probably 66, 67. My family's cringing right now. And so the rest are pretty young. Brett Kavanaugh's probably 62, 63. Neil Gorsuch, probably 60-ish, 61. Ketanji, Brown Jackson, probably 57, 58. And Amy Coney Barrett, 55-ish, 56. All right. So really the only one that should resign right now of the conservatives is Clarence Thomas. Not because he's not a good jurist, but because the chances of him being replaced by a liberal would exponentially increase if the Democrats take over. Samuel Alito, you as well. You're 77-ish. Again, Sotomayor, feel free to retire. John Roberts, he's pretty much no use to the conservative cause. He can retire too. And the rest are pretty young. But if any of the liberals want to step down and let President Trump name their replacement, I'd be all for that, because basically you are not doing the country any service, not providing any great service. All right. So talk about taxes a little bit. A little bit. 3:41 right now. We've been on about 41 minutes. And taxes are going to take a little while, because I have the current system we're going to talk about, and then we have an alternative system that I like, that I think you should look into and maybe support as well. Let your congressman, let your senator or congressman or woman, let your senators know you support it. Maybe we can get it done. Let's talk about taxes first. We have a progressive tax system. That means the more you make, the more you pay. How very un-American. How very un-American. I thought we were about equality. Everyone is the same. Okay, so the progressive tax system right now, I believe the top rate is maybe 34%. I haven't looked them up this year. It may have changed. And it goes down to like 10%. And then some pay none. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So the more you make, the more you pay. Now, it's not, if you're in the top bracket, it doesn't mean you pay 34% on every dime you own. It's over a certain amount, you pay 34% and things like that. There's a video on that. You can watch that as well. So let's look at figures from the National Taxpayers Union. This is about a year ago from the IRS figures. The National Taxpayers Union put this report out. You hear all the time, tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. And I understand the feeling. I understand the thought process that goes through. They have a lot of money, right? Tax the rich. And then when there are tax cuts, why are the rich getting tax cuts? Why not the poor? Well, let's talk about that. Again, according to the National Taxpayers Union, this is from IRS figures about a year ago. The top 1% of all wage earners in this country, the top 1%, these are the people who make over $683,000. You know what percentage of all taxes paid they pay? All taxes paid, from the richest person in the country to the poorest person in the country, you add up all that tax money, add it all up, and the percent that the top 1%, the percentage of all income taxes paid that the top 1% pay is 46%. 46%, almost half of all taxes paid by the 1%. Does that sound right? Does that sound fair? I thought we were all the same. I thought we were supposed to be treated the same. There's a plan for that. It's called the flat tax. Everyone pays the same percentage of taxes over a certain amount. Like maybe the first $25,000 is tax-free. No one pays tax under the flat tax. First $25,000. No one pays a dime in taxes on that. Okay. After that, everyone pays the same amount. So from $25,000, $1 to $10 million, whatever you make, you pay the same percentage. So the rich are going to pay more dollars, but the same percentage. All right, let's go back to our table we're talking about. So the top 1% pays 46%. You add in the other 4% that make up the top 5%. These are people that make $253,000 plus. Top 5%. That includes the 1%, so stick with me. They pay 66% of all taxes. 2/3 of all taxes is paid by 5% of wage earners in this country. Something doesn't seem right there. That's an awful big tax burden for just 5% of all wage earners. All right, so let's move on. Let's get to the top 10% of all taxpayers. 10%. These are people making about 170,000 plus. Now remember, this includes the top 5% and the top 1% as well. So you add all these people up together. 10% are people making 170K plus. They pay 76% of all taxes. 76%. 3/4 of all taxes paid by 10% of taxpayers. I don't know about you, this is sounding awfully unfair. Okay? Let's go to the top 25% of all taxpayers. These people make $95,000 basically. So these people that make $95,000, top 25% of all income earners, all wage earners in this country, according to National Taxpayers Unions from IRS figures, this is about a year ago, top 25% pay 89% of all taxes. And finally, we'll just do top 50%. These are people making about $47,000 a year and up. The top 50% of all wage earners in this country pay 98%. 98%. Of course, these are all rounded. It could be 98.4. The last one, 89, could have been, 88.8. Anyway, rounded. The top 50% of all taxpayers, those making more than $47,000 a year, pay about 98% of all taxes. Of money going to the Treasury through taxes. 98%. Probably the biggest hardship of this whole filibuster thing is going to be not drinking water. Okay, because you talk and talk and talk. Okay, all right. But I'll be okay. So let's talk about now. We talked about the top 50%. Let's talk about the bottom 50% of all taxpayers in this country. The poor, the downtrodden, the hurting. And they don't hurt. Okay. Anyway, the bottom 50% of all taxpayers pay 2% of all taxes. 2% of all taxes. Wow. What's wrong with this picture? What is wrong with this picture? How is it so skewed that, 25% of all wage earners pay 90% of all taxes? How is that fair? How is that right? And then the one that really gets me is when there's tax cuts. Oh, the rich don't need tax. They shouldn't get tax cuts. They're the only ones paying. If you're going to cut taxes, you got to cut taxes for people who are paying taxes. I'm not in the top 1%. I'm not in the top 10%. Now, if the channel were bigger, maybe. That's up to you. All right, anyway. But I'm not in any of those huge dollar amount. I'm a teacher. Okay? But it's not right to say they shouldn't get taxes when they're the ones paying taxes. If anything, tax cuts should go to the top 50% of wage earners. That's it. We use policy. We use tax codes. We use lawmakers use policy. Hey, if you do this, we'll give you a tax cut. Or if you don't do this, we'll give you a tax cut. Or if you're doing something we don't approve of, like there's sin taxes, not just regular taxes, but more taxes on cigarettes and alcohol. Okay, I'm not a smoker at all, and I can probably count on one hand how many drinks I've had in the last 5 years. I have no problem with it. It's just not my thing. Okay, so sin taxes. So if it's so bad that we need to put another tax on it because it's horrible, why don't we just get rid of alcohol and tobacco anyway? Don't send angry emails. It's a point to be made. Why don't they just outlaw cigarettes and alcohol? Well, they tried the alcohol thing back in the 1920s. Didn't work out too well. They get too much tax money from it. That's why. So we're going to punish you for doing X, Y, and Z. We'll reward you if you do X, Y, and Z. Power to politicians, making you do what they want or not do what they don't want you to do by using the tax code to incentivize or disincentivize behavior. Here's a great idea. We don't want people to be poor, right? Well, let's tax them for being poor. That is a 100% a joke. Okay, that's a joke, a government teacher's joke. All right. So just please keep your angry and ugly emails with the knowledge that it's a joke. So our tax system picks winners and losers. Our tax system rewards people or punishes people based on what politicians, what people in Washington, Democrat, Republican, Independent, part of the group that gets to decide how much money comes out of your check with taxes, what benefits you'll get from these taxes, what benefits you'll get from Medicare, how Social Security is going to pay out. All these things they get to decide, and they get to tell you how much of money they need to make it happen. There's a movie I love. I love this movie. It's probably my favorite comedy of all time. It's called Brain Donors, and it's a smarmy lawyer who is taking advantage of an old rich widow who he impressed her somehow, right? I think she was involved in an accident in her vehicle, and he was there, and so she was very impressed, and so she keeps him around. And he's trying to bilk her out of money. And at one point in the movie, he's using her money to try to win favor with her, and he brings her a bracelet. And because he hadn't been around in a while, and so she's, "Where have you been?" He goes, "Oh, I thought of you, and I brought you this." And she goes, "Oh, another lovely bracelet." And as he's putting it on her wrist, he mutters under his breath, "For you, from you." And that's what these politicians do. I've got a great new office building being built in my district because I brought home the bacon for this, and it's going to provide jobs, and blah, 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 blah. For you, from you. Or, well, I've managed to secure funding for this 6-lane highway that we really don't need, but it's going to be nice and it's going to bring more economic activity. So we're going to spend this money to make your life better. For you, from you. These people take our money and then insult us by telling us they're doing something good for us from their heart, from their goodness, from their noble ideas. For you, from you. So how do we get power? This power we've given these yokels, these idiots, these jackals. How do we get power out of their hands? How do we make sure that they don't tell us what to do in order for us to get a tax break? How do we get the power out of their hands? There's something called the fair tax. F-A-I-R, fair tax. You can go to fairtax.org to see a more detailed presentation about the fair tax than what I'm going to do here. All right. So the number one great thing about the fair tax, it abolishes the Internal Revenue Service. Gets rid of the Internal Revenue Service. Costs us about probably $12.5 billion with a B, billion dollars. Imagine an automatic savings of $12.5 billion, just like that. Congress passes a law, President signs it, IRS is abolished. Gone. Couldn't have happened to a nicer group of people. Okay, it also, the fair tax program that we're talking about, abolishes every single federal tax. Your income tax, the money that's taken out of your check, Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, estate taxes, corporate taxes, gift taxes, et cetera, et cetera. All those are gone. There are no more federal taxes of that nature. By the way, Social Security and Medicare, that's a tax on employers as well. That's a tax on employers as well. And so what do employers do? What do businesses do when they're taxed? Do they just eat that? Do they just say, "Oh man, the government got me, I'm going to have to pay out of my profits"? What do? They pass the savings, or the expenditure on to you. Prices go up for everyone. Because if you think Target and Walmart and Amazon and all these huge conglomerates that you want to tax the hell out of, if you think they're going to eat that, you are sadly mistaken. It's a cost of doing business, and costs get passed on to the ultimate consumer, you. So the fair tax, again, March 25th, 2024, there's a video on this channel about it. Abolishes the IRS, abolishes all federal taxes. We talked about income, Social Security, Medicare, estate, corporate, and gift taxes. So how does government get its money? That's replaced by a single national sales tax on new, only new goods and services. Only new goods and services. A single sales tax on new goods and services. National sales tax. Before we move on to the sales tax, let me move back to payroll taxes, Social Security, income taxes, and we stop there. The other two are federal only, Medicare and Social Security taxes. In some states, luckily not for us in Texas, in most states, there is a state income tax. Okay, now that's between you and your governor, legislature there. That doesn't affect everyone that's watching this. If you live in a state that has no state income tax, like Texas, like Florida, I believe Arizona, as well as with a few others, so no money will be taken out of your check. If you live in the state that has a state income tax, money will still be taken out of your check, but that's a state tax. We're talking about federal taxes. Okay, national taxes, taxes levied by the national or federal government. So those of you, again, in states with a state income tax, you will still get money taken out of your check. We're talking about something that applies to everyone, which is the federal taxes, all right? Now, this national sales tax, which would be around, let me get to that in a little bit, would be collected at the point of sale by businesses, like they do state taxes now. In Texas, Texas taxes, I'm getting confused. In Texas, we have a sales tax on not every item, but some items that we pay when we buy something. I go to Walmart here in town, and I go get my Dr. Pepper, because that's taxed. And if it's $1, it's going to be $1.08. Okay, 6.25% goes to the state, and the rest stays here locally. All right, but I know that I'm going to pay it by deciding to buy that Dr. Pepper, which obviously is a need. All right, so the federal tax, the fair tax, the national sales tax would be collected at the register just like they do state taxes, state sales taxes. Monthly, maybe weekly, quarterly, I don't know. They would remit all the money that they collected for the national government to the national government, to the U.S. Treasury. It would all be done electronically. No agents needed, no audits needed. Basically, Walmart would collect all the national sales tax, and let's say they send it out, or they send it in to the U.S. Treasury, I don't know, every week, and I'm picking a number, and I have no clue how close it is to reality. But they would send, I don't know, $78,000 in collected federal fair taxes to the national government. They would not need do a backflip. You want to see me die? Ooh, that would get some views, wouldn't it? They would collect it for the national government and send it to the national government. All right, just like they do the state. They would get a small fee for this. Okay, Walmart, Target, etc., H-E-B, if you know what H-E-B is, Publix, supermarket, if you know what that is. They would get a small fee for doing this, for doing the work for the national government. But what is it? A 1 or a 0 in the computer program? That's all it is. It's a one-time fix, a one-time deal, and IT does it from the keyboard, and it's done. And it automatically happens at the point of sale. This is huge, the implications for this, if we were to do it. Fairtax.org, F-A-I-R, fairtax.org. Read more, hear more, see more about it on that website. All right. So what else does the fair tax do? Besides getting rid of the IRS, which is enough, we could stop right there, and the benefits are great. But what else does it do? It cuts tax compliance costs for businesses. Now, businesses have a built-in cost of doing business, right? They got the lights, the air conditioning, they got the floor maintenance, they got the employees, they have payroll taxes, They have, all these different things they need to conduct business. And those costs get passed on to the consumer. All right? Because, businesses are in business to make a profit. Okay. So the tax compliance, imagine Walmart. All right? I'm trying to pick something that is universal in this country. All right. I know sometimes I get people from other countries watching, actually. So welcome to all of y'all who are watching from anywhere outside the United States. Those of you in the United States, yes, almost all of this pertains to almost everyone in this country. Okay? Everything we talk about, not just this. All right. So part of the cost of doing business is a whole department. Imagine for Walmart, tax compliance, payroll taxes, with auditors and accountants and CPAs and all these different people that do all these things to make sure that they are in compliance with this humongous tax code that's tens of thousands of pages long. And someone has to figure out what the businesses need to do to be in compliance so they're not fined by the national government because of this, because of tax avoidance or whatever the case may be. So they have people on staff and probably outside contractors who do all this, and that's a cost of doing business that they have to pass on to the consumer. So when you get rid of the IRS and this monstrosity and stupid and ridiculous tax code that we have, when you get rid of all that, you get rid of all those departments and all those people that keep up with all this, okay? So what happens when a business gets rid of a cost of doing business? Some of the cost of doing business, they can lower prices, can't they? Yes. Oh no, they never do that because they're just screwing the little guy. They just hate us, and they're just trying to get as much as they can out of it. Yeah, they are. And we're paying as little as we can, right? That's why we comparison shop. That's why we go online and check out reviews and stuff so we make the best choice for our money, for our dollars, our hard-earned dollars that is taxed. And so what happens is, if you are a business, and let me see if I can find something. Okay. If you are a business and you make this flag, and it costs you, to make this flag, it costs you $1. No, I'm sorry, 50 cents. It costs you 50 cents to make the flag. All inclusive. All your payroll, your tax compliance, your electricity, your air conditioning, everything it costs to make that flag. Each flag costs 50 cents to make. All right? So when it costs 50 cents and they sell it for $1, how much is their profit? 50 cents, right? So they made 50 cents on this item that cost them 50 cents to make, and they sold it for $1. So if their cost of doing business goes down, and it costs them, I'm going to use very easy math because I'm not a math guy, all right? Math and I are like oil and water, okay? I know the basic four: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. I'm decent with decimals and percentages and fractions, okay? After that, it's not fun. So I'm going to use easy math. Now this thing that used to cost them 50 cents to make, this flag, and remember there's different companies making flags, right? It's not just one company. So this flag cost them 50 cents to make. They sold it for $1, and so they made 50 cents profit. Now the fair tax is implemented, and that whole accounting department, that whole all the CPAs and the accountants and the clerks and the secretaries and all that whole department is shut down. And now the cost of doing business to make this flag has gone down. Again, easy math. I say I'm not a math guy. I know, but I multiply well. I have 5 kids. So now the cost of doing business, those costs have been removed. The cost to make this now is not 50 cents, but it's 25 cents. Okay? So 25 cents to make that flag. So as a business, you can still charge $1 and make 75 cents profit. Or if you were making good money before, you can lower the price to 50 cents, 75 cents, and still make a 50-cent profit. Now, the company that made this flag, they have computers. And if this company lowers their price to 75 cents, what does the competitor have to do? Lower their price to 75 cents. So who benefits from all this? The consumer. you, me, and everyone else who buys things benefits when the cost of doing business goes down. Prices can go down, and because of competition, where one business is trying to take market share from another, some will lower prices, and then the others will have to follow suit. And so we, the consumer, benefit from this whole system. Okay? So the savings of implementing the fair tax, savings for business are passed on to the consumer, and the company gains more market share by lowering the price. Win-win for everyone. The fair tax also broadens the tax base. Broadens the tax base. Only a certain number of people pay taxes now. Okay? Last time I looked, it was about 155 million people pay taxes. And those are the people who get up, go to work, work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever the case may be. They close, they work overnight, whatever the case may be. They work for a business that takes money out of their checks to send to the federal government for payroll taxes, et cetera, et cetera. Under the fair tax proposal, there would be an estimated 250 million taxpayers and tourists. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay? There are a lot of people who don't pay taxes now because they work for cash, they work under the table, they don't pay taxes. So, these aren't the only ones, these are the first ones I came up with. Who do lawn care? They don't have a business, right? They just have lawn care. I'll go cut your yard. 25, 30 bucks, whatever the case may be. They get paid in cash or a check, and they don't they don't start singing. Yeah, you want people to turn off? You want people to turn this off? So they go do yard work, and they don't pay taxes. People who also do babysitting or elder sitting, people who take care of older people, okay, they get paid sometimes, most of the time, in cash or check, untraceable. It's just $30. What's the big deal? No one's going to look into that. And they don't pay taxes. And here's the big one. Drug dealers. I've never seen or heard of an IRS form. When you fill out your taxes, it asks what your occupation is. I've never seen a form or heard of a form that was filled out and said, occupation, drug dealer. What happened? So all these people, anyone else who gets paid in cash, under the table, off the books, under the fair tax, will now be paying taxes because they can't avoid it. Because when they buy something, they have to pay the tax. The register at Target, the register at Walmart, the register at fill in the blank, automatically adds the fair tax to their purchase, and they have to pay the tax. Tourists who just love to come visit, they have to buy that little miniature Statue of Liberty statue in the gift shop. Guess what? They'll now be paying a tax. So we have all these people that are not paying taxes now, who would be paying taxes. We have the tax base broadens from about 155 million to about 250 million because you can't avoid the tax at the register. Now, if you buy something used, there is no tax. It's already been taxed when it was sold once. So there's no tax, no fair tax on a used item, a used car, secondhand clothing, whatever the case may be. It is not new anymore. If you buy an item that is not new, you don't pay a tax on it. The estimated sales tax would be about 30%. So when I go buy that Dr. Pepper, that's $1. If I can only find one these days for $1. If I buy that Dr. Pepper for $1, okay, the 20-ounce bottle, the 16-ounce can, whatever the case may be, it's $1. Again, I'm doing easy math. It would cost me $1.30. Well, $1.38 because of the state taxes. But for national taxes, what we're talking about, $1.30. $1.30. The best part, some idiot, some jackal in Washington doesn't tell me I have to pay that. Someone sitting up in Austin, at our state capitol, a senator, a state representative, our governor, doesn't tell me I have to pay the tax. I decide what tax to pay by what I buy. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Voluntary taxation. Voluntary taxation. I know some of you right now are on this, pie in the sky. Guess what? If we got off our butts and did something and put some pressure on these idiots, maybe something would happen. Maybe something good would happen. Not just this, anything else that you think is a good idea. Maybe it would be a good idea Maybe it would be enough to get the mass of people, a majority of, not even a majority. You know what? About historians believe no more than 25 to 30% of colonists wanted total separation from England. So you don't need 50% plus one to get something done in this country. Most people are too busy eating and watching the Kardashians. They don't care. A lot of people don't think this. Man, am I government class? This doesn't concern me. I don't care about this. It's not my thing. I'm not political. Blah 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 blah. Yes, when you get your first check and money's taken out, you're going to think it concerns you a lot. So we got 25 to 30% of this country to put pressure on these idiots, both Democrat and Republican, and say, this is what we want, make it happen, or I'll find someone who does make it happen. Remember, dirty little secret, the politicians don't want you to know, you are the boss. We are the boss. You know what? I have it here somewhere. Handy dandy. Bing. Constitution. You know what it says in the Constitution? I'll get back to the fair tax in a minute. I know you're just waiting with bated breath for me to get back to the fair tax. I'm getting there. But I need to tell you, you are the boss. You are the one who says you have servants. Well-paid servants. But you have servants. They're called senators and congressmen or women. Presidents. Okay? They work for us, not the other way around. I meet so many people, I'm just going all off. But guess what? That's what a filibuster is for. I can talk about whatever I want. Okay? So we have people that are friends of mine that, oh, nothing will ever change. You know, it sounds good. Nothing will ever change. I happen to believe it can. I happen to believe if we put our minds to it and got off our butts and did something and paid attention and told them, I don't care what side you're on and what side's in power, you will stop this. You will stop the stupidity. You will stop the idiocy. Trillions of dollars in debt a year? $1 trillion debt a year? What's wrong with you people? Get it together. Why do we as individuals, if we have X amount of money and Y amount of expenses, oh, you could play the credit card game for a long time, but eventually you're going to lose at that game. You could fund your lifestyle if you don't have enough money with credit cards, but eventually those will come due. Okay. So why do you, why do we have to adjust our budget, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, sometimes annually? Why do we have to adjust it to our income and make hard choices and make this happen and make our budgets balance? Because we have to. Why can't they? Why can't Mike Johnson and the rest of the Republicans and Hakeem Jeffries and the rest of the Democrats and Senator Thune and the Republicans in Senate and Senator, what's that guy's name? Senator, I can see his face. Schumer, Senator Schumer of New York. Again, he and the rest of the Democrats in the Senate say, we're going to balance the budget. In fact, I've got a great idea. How about this? How about this, people? You like this? Let's do it. The balance is out of budget by, I don't know, say 12%. They get a 12% pay cut the next year. How about that? How about that? It's out of balance, 22%. Their pay is cut 22%. How about that? Oh, no. They need their money. Well, who doesn't? We need some accountability for these people. We need to start paying attention. We as a whole need to start paying attention and tell these people what we want. When was the last time any of us, you, me, have contacted our representatives or our senators? How many? When was the last time? I know some do. I know one of my sisters does, probably a lot. When was the last time all of you, all four of you, and when was the last time y'all contacted your senator, your representative, and said, here's what I want? Make it happen. I'm not going to say that I was the magic bullet that did it. But back in 2024, right before his term ended, Joe Biden's auto pen signed a bill that had been passed in the House and Senate that was very unfair to certain workers, including me. Okay, it was called the Government Pension Offset. And here's how it worked. If you had a pension from a governmental entity, I'm a teacher, so I'll get a pension when I retire, your Social Security taxes or your Social Security benefit will be reduced. Your Social Security benefits will be reduced because you get a pension. Well, my question is this. Anyone could do what I did. I worked a total of, and I never quit the first time, 40 years, but I quit once. So 29 years in the private sector with one company. Okay, I was in management for a while. I worked with them. It's a grocery store. I started as a bagger, went up to checker, then the business center where you pay bills and stuff, then bookkeeping where you counted all the tills. Then I became a floor assistant, and then I became the service manager in charge, et cetera, et cetera. And so I worked for 29 years this go around and paid all those Social Security taxes. And because the people in government thought it was unfair that some people don't get that advantage, they were going to cut my security that I paid into legally, fairly, and they were going to deny me some of my money because I dared to go get a different job. Like I said, I'm not the magic bullet, but what happened was I contacted my congressman, my representative, and my senators, and I said, hey, this is not fair. Anyone could do what I did. But I paid fair and square into Social Security. I deserve all my Social Security money. It's called fairness. And I got the letters back. Oh, yeah, it's a great idea. I co-sponsored this, blah, 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 blah. And lo and behold, and there was some Democrat support for this. Both my senators and my representative are all Republican. There's some Democrat support for this as well, because union members, police officers, firefighters, they also would get their Social Security benefits with decreased if they had any, because they get a pension. And so in a rare display of bipartisanship, the Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate got together, passed a bill getting rid of the government pension offset. Basically, getting rid of decreasing the amount of Social Security someone gets if they have a pension. So Biden's auto pen signed that in December of 2025. Prove to me it didn't, right? He didn't, right? Prove to me it didn't sign it. In 2025, December of 2025, he signed it, and it's now the law of the land. So now when I retire, 5 years or less if this channel grows, I will get all my Social Security now. Okay. Was I the magic bullet? Probably not. Was I a raindrop? Yes. What's a raindrop? Come on, at the very beginning, hour and 20 minutes ago, I said, hello, raindrops. I said that at the beginning of every video. If you ever wondered, it's no raindrop thinks it's responsible for the flood. No raindrop thinks it's responsible for the flood. Put enough raindrops together, me and you, we can flood Washington, D.C. and our state capitals with what we want. I'm not talking anything violent. I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm not talking about anything dangerous. I'm just talking about telling these idiots what we want. So be a raindrop. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Be a raindrop, and let's get some stuff done. Now, I'm all over the place. I'm going to go back to the Constitution. Again, that's what a filibuster's for. You talk about anything. All right. How does it show that we are in charge? Let me read just the preamble to you. We, the people of the United States, and there's a bunch of clauses. I'll go back over them here in a minute. We, the people of the United States, now you go down to the very last section, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We, the people, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Not some ruler, not some king, not some dictator, not some governing body, not some group of men, women, children, whatever, whoever's in charge. No, we the people ordain and establish the Constitution. And we tell them what is going to happen. So let me read the whole thing. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. And you know what, the way people read this, it should be read this way to make it very clear of what we're doing. I'm going to read it the way I think it should be read. This is a clause that applies to everything after it, so I'm going to say it that way. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, in order to establish justice, in order to ensure domestic tranquility, in order to provide for the common defense, in order to promote the general welfare, in order to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That is why we're doing it. In order to do all those things. Okay? We are in charge. We are the boss. Get it through your heads, presidents, vice presidents, cabinet members, Supreme Court justices, representatives, and senators. All the bureaucracy that fills all these departments with unaccountable people. We are the boss. Okay? The Constitution, the founding document, or the document that they put into print, that put into words, that put into action what government is supposed to do for us, not to us. There's a difference. So, let's get back to, I am all over the place. It's okay. Get back to the fair tax. I'm talking about the voluntary taxation. That's what I was talking about, voluntary taxation. By what you buy, you decide how much tax you pay. You set your own tax rate. The money doesn't come out of your check. You get your entire check. That 30% kind of rough, right? But you get your entire check. If you make 20 bucks an hour, you work easy math, 10 bucks an hour, and you work 40 hours, you get a check of $400 with this plan. Now, I mentioned earlier, if you have state taxes, that's going to come out, okay? But I'm talking about federal taxes. If you have insurance through work, that premium is going to come out of your check as well. But I'm talking about taxation at the federal level. If you make 20 bucks an hour and work 40 hours, you get $800, and your check is $800. See, in this case, you have a choice of what taxes you pay. You don't have to do what Chuck Schumer and John Thune and Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries tell you to do. You decide what tax you pay under this plan, under the fair tax, F-A-I-R, fairtax.org. Fairtax.org. Check it out. I think you'll like it. But I'm not done. Okay? This voluntary taxation under this plan takes power away from politicians. If you do this, you'll get a tax cut. If you don't do this, we'll tax you more. If you do this, we'll tax you more. Okay? It takes power away from them. They say, jump through this hoop and I'll give you a tax break. No, I don't think so. Employee, you do what I tell you. I would decide what tax I pay by what I buy. Okay? Takes powers away from politicians. No audits, no IRS agents, no letters, threatening letters, no liens from the IRS. April 15th, just another lovely spring day. Or in Texas, 100 degrees already. Sometime. Okay. Now, I know what you're thinking. It sounds good, sounds great, but what about the poor? How can they afford? You told me earlier, Mr. A, you said earlier that the bottom 50% only paid 2% of all taxes. And now you want to throw a 30% tax on everything they buy new? And I don't think anyone buys used food, right? So now they're going to pay more at the store because now they're not paying anything, hardly. And now they're going to pay more? Here's the beauty of the fair tax. Every month, every single month, every legal citizen and resident household, okay, no illegals, every citizen and every legal resident, each household receives a check each month to cover national sales tax on goods and services up to the poverty level. Now, let me explain that a little bit. A prebate check. You know what a rebate is, right? You go to the store, you get the form, you get your receipt, you got to fill out the form, include the receipt or photocopy the receipt, blah, blah, blah. You send it to an address and they send you a check. That's a rebate. A prebate happens before you spend. So again, every legal citizen, every legal immigrant would receive a check each month from the government to cover national sales tax on goods and services, new goods and services, up to the poverty level. This is going to vary based on your family size and where you live. For example, where I live in Texas, it's much cheaper to live here than it is San Francisco. So my family, now my kids are almost all grown. I had 5 children. So when it was the 7 of us, my wife, myself, my wife, my 5 kids, when it was all 7 of us, based on where I live, the poverty level would be, I don't know, say $20,000. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. Here you go. Got it. There you go. Got it. Thin air. I got it. All right. So based on my family size, 7 people in the household, spending for basic new goods and services for a family of 7 living in this area of Texas, the taxes on that up to the poverty level would be, I don't know, again, there you go, got it, I don't know, $800. I have no clue. All right, so I would get an $800 check. My family and I would receive an $800 check every month. Now, the same family living in San Francisco, it might be $1,700 because things are so expensive there. So it's going to vary location to location, but it's based on where you live and what poverty level is at that place. So every month we would get a check for $800 in this example. And that would take care of new goods and services needed to live up to the poverty level. So the poor, if they're living under the poverty level, will pay no taxes at all. As long as they don't spend over the limit for the poverty level, they won't pay any tax at all because a prebate check will cover all that. Now, that sounds good, but to understand this, you're going to be mad about this. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, they will all get prebate checks as well based on their family size and where they live. It treats everyone the same. It's not on their lifestyle, though. It's up to the poverty level where they live. Okay, Elon Musk will not get a check every month that pays the taxes on everything he buys. But he will get a check based on his family size and where he lives to pay taxes up to the poverty level for his family. Okay, so everyone is treated the same. So the poor don't pay any taxes, and everyone gets their the taxes on poverty level living where they live every month. So that is again fairtax.org, fairtax.org is where you can find out more information. There's some informative videos or some reading to do, what you can tell your senators, your congressmen of what you want. The beauty of it is it takes power out of those idiots' hands. We tell them what we're going to pay in taxes by what we do, by what we buy, by what we don't buy. All right. So please give it a look. I think you'll like it. I think it makes sense. It's as simple as flipping a switch at the stores to collect taxes. No $12.3 billion needed every year to collect taxes. It makes April 15th just another beautiful day in the spring. Fairtax.org, F-A-I-R tax, fairtax.org. Look into it. I urge you to. Whew. Done a lot, haven't we? Starting to get a little thirsty, aren't I? It's okay. I can do this. One of the things I like to do, and I've come out with a couple, but I have ideas for more. I'm going to go over them a little bit of things we can do to be more efficient, to make better use of our tax money. For example, here in Texas, if you don't know, has 254 counties. 254 counties across the state. Some out in West Texas, have more jackrabbits than people, and some are densely populated, like in Bexar County in San Antonio, Harris County in Texas, et cetera, Travis County in Austin, et cetera. Okay, but each county right now has multiple schools. Most counties have multiple school districts, independent school districts in their counties. So in the 254 counties, there are about, I'm just rounding, 1,200 school districts. 4 times as many school districts as there are counties. Can you imagine the amount of money being spent on multiple school district superintendents, assistant superintendents, staffs, communications, police forces, bus fleets, et cetera, et cetera. So my idea is this, very simple. Why not have one school district per county? So you go from the whole administrative costs. Now, of course, the cost for teachers is going to be the same. The cost for your school lunches is going to be the same. Actually, you might get better prices by buying in bulk, but there are some built-in costs that are going to stay the same. But imagine the savings in administrative costs that you could realize if you went from 1,200 school districts to 254. They can still be independent. Just because you call it Bexar County School District doesn't mean it belongs to Bexar County. It's just it's just naming where they're located. You'd still have a superintendent, probably a couple assistant superintendents. And I know some of you are saying, yeah, but that means only the people in the rich areas that are going to get elected or appointed to superintendents, school board, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you could fix that. You could have districts for for school board elections. You could have districts which are geographic and cross-geographic in order to give a good representation on the school board. So you do that. But I can't imagine the cost. I know in our district, well, I don't know exactly. I've heard that in our school district, the superintendent makes somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000. Is that exact? Probably not. Is it pretty close? Probably. Okay. So 1,200 times, and this is a smaller district, so I'm just going to go with that average. 1,200 times 150,000. I do it myself, but my phone is recording, so I can't use my calculator. Could you give me a 1,200 times 150,000? My lovely assistant, my wife, is bringing that up for me on the calculator. That is what we're spending right now on superintendents. Okay, just superintendents. 180 million. $180 million being spent on just superintendents. Thank you. Just superintendents. Imagine how much leaner and more efficient we could be if instead of having 1,200 school districts, you have 254 school districts. Each county runs the schools. Each county's school board runs the schools in that county. I think it's a great idea, and I think we should do that to save some money, and maybe use some of that money for better facilities. The place I'm in is not in good shape. Had to close part of the campus down because of mold. So we're not in good shape. So perhaps we can use some more of that money for things that actually contribute to education on a daily basis. I know what superintendents do. It does affect education. I'm talking day to day where the rubber meets the road. You could have more money for stuff like that, or just cut taxes, cut property taxes, so we can attract more businesses, have more jobs, and hopefully improve everyone's well-being. All right. Talking about schools, I do want to talk about the Department of Education. Last time I looked, the Department of Education budget for 2026 was $79 billion. $79 billion. But it's for the children. But it's for the kids. How much of that $79 billion do you think gets down to the local school district? You know how big of a bureaucracy they have up in Washington for the Department of Education? $79 billion. Since its inception, the Department of Education has not been around forever. like, Department of War or the Attorney General and all those departments. No, no, no. It was a payoff to teachers' unions in 1979. I was 13 years old when they came up with this thing. That's how new it is, because I'm like 35. Since its inception in 1979, the Department of Education has spent over $3 trillion, with a T, let me repeat that, $3 trillion. Those of you who have been alive, who remember 1979, do you think our education system has gotten better or worse since then? If anyone says better, I've got a bridge to sell you. Okay? Got some oceanfront property in Arizona, as the song goes. Okay? Our education system is in the toilet. There's pockets here and there of something good happening, etc. But for the most part, generally speaking, our education system is in the toilet. Now, is it all the system's fault? No. No, not at all. I still teach. And I can tell you there is no support. No needs an asterisk, okay? Because when we say always, never, etc., that's not a true statement. It just means the overwhelming majority, okay? So there is no asterisk support from home, from parents, for what we do. There is no support, there is no consequences for these children, for these parents, and we're in a mess. I really do wonder and worry about the future. Because we have a group of students now who, again, group, not every single one, but a lot that just don't care. And then you talk to the parents and you realize why they don't care. Because the parent doesn't care either. We have a system that was designed for the late 1800s that we're still doing today. And why? Why are we still doing what we were doing in the 1800s? Because guess what? As much as you think differently, your parents think they're okay. And their parents think they're okay. And their parents think they're okay. So if it's good enough for them, it was good enough for your parents who thought they turned out okay. I wonder what you think. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for you. Why are you off every summer? Students, why are you off every summer? To enjoy the lovely 100-degree weather? No. To go see grandma? Nope. Why are you off every summer? To go to the beach and support tourist towns? Nope. Oh gosh, so we can paint the house? Nope. You're off in the summer to help out at the farm. This system was set up for agriculture. The system we have now was set up for agricultural economics. So you could be home and help. Okay, during the winter, not much happens in agriculture, especially back in the day when they came up with this. So you would work, and of course you went to work a lot later than you do. You went to school a lot later than you do now. You would go to school, September, October, and then during the winter, of course, there's nothing else to do, so the kids go learn it. And there's nothing wrong with learning, okay? Don't get me wrong. And then in the spring, when it's time to plant, you need to be needed back at the house. And then remember, there was no back when they set this up, there was no John Deere, there was no Roundup, there was no chemical additives to help with pests, to help with growing, fertilizers, et cetera, et cetera. So you were needed to help run the farm, the economic activity most people were involved in. That's why you're off every summer. Wow. How pathetic is that? We are still doing what we were doing in the late 1800s because, well, that's the way it was set up. So let's keep doing it. You know what? As a teacher, I would love to have a month off in December, the whole month of December off. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, down here in Texas it would be because it's not so hot. Maybe up in the northeast, you want summer's off because that's nice weather for you. Okay, but for here in Texas, okay, but that's the beauty about independent school districts. Independent, they can make the calendar to fit their local community. Also, why do we have classes from, generally speaking, 8 to 3? Do colleges just offer classes 8 to 3? No. Why does it work for college? Oh, it never worked for us. It works for colleges. Why don't we have night classes? I'm not much of a morning person. And if I could teach a class once a week in the evening in order to go in an hour later, bring it on. There are kids in my classroom right now who knows what they do all night, probably video games or phones or both, and they have so much trouble staying awake in the morning. So why not let them sleep in and come to the evening class? Well, we've never done that. I don't think we could do it. Why not? That really made me need some water. That really made me need some water. But the filibuster rules are clear. No eating, no drinking. So I move on. At 4:42, I have 2 more hours left. 2 more hours. I haven't even gone through all my papers. So why don't we do that? Why can't we fix it? Why can't we change it? Change is hard, but it's worth it. You know why? You know why I know change is hard? Because if you have your chance, if you go to church or synagogue or mosque every week, I'll bet if you get there on time or before time, I bet you sit in about the same spot. I'll bet when you were in school and you went to lunch, you probably sat in about the same area of the cafeteria. I bet you basically take the same route home to and from work every day. I bet you probably eat, regularly speaking, the same 3 or 4 restaurants, be it fast food or sit down, whatever. I bet you only eat about 3 or 4, right? We are creatures of habit, and this habit of our schooling, of our public schooling, that has happened since the late 1800s, set up for agricultural economy. Kids today don't even know how stuff is grown, much less work on the farm. So why can't we change? That's another government solution. Let's change our system of public education. Let's get away from standardized testing, because that does not encourage critical thinking. It does not encourage rational thought. It encourages memorization so you can pass the test so you can graduate. I've been in education off and on, mostly on, since 2001. And the degradation of our students' thinking ability, our students' literacy, our students' creative writing, our students' math skills has gone down the tubes. Has gone down the tubes. And guess what we do in public education, right? Well, we can't not let someone graduate because that looks bad on us. Forget it's the fact that Johnny doesn't come to school. That doesn't matter. It just looks bad on the district. Forget the fact that Johnny goes to sleep and doesn't do any work. No, that doesn't look bad on Johnny. It looks bad on the district. Forget the fact that we have 10 billion programs to help these students out if they only take advantage of them, but they don't, so it looks bad on us. And so we have a system that instead of challenging children, instead of making them live up to something, we take their feeble excuses, we take their sad stories, we take their lack of motivation, their lack of effort, their lack of work, and if we say, this is what you have to do. Now let's start higher. Okay, this is what they have to do to pass. Well, not enough for passing, so we're going to lower the standards right here. This is what you have to do. And nope, not enough for passing or graduating, so we need to lower the standards here. This is what you have to do. Well, they're still not making it, so we're going to lower the, and we're going to lower the, and they're not, and so we're going to lower. We keep lowering expectations, and the kids live down to that. I'm not a perfect teacher. I feel so sorry for those kids my first couple of years. I was like this. You can't see the podium. I'm standing at the podium with my hands glued to the side. Turn to page 24 in the book. I didn't write anything on the board. I didn't move around the room. I'm so sorry. If any of you my first year teacher, first year students, 2001, 2002, 2002, 2003, any of you are watching, I'm so sorry. But you have no tricks, and you've never done it before, and so you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. I got better as time went along, much more like this. Of course, I'd walk around the room then instead of just stand, but I have to stand because it's a filibuster. A hunger buster right now would be good, wouldn't it? I say filibuster and I think of a hunger buster. And so anyway, I'm off again. So anyway, but I got better as a teacher. And I'll say this, for the vast majority of students, they lived up to what I expected. The vast majority. Some of these kids, they don't have the support at home. They don't have the belief in education from home. They didn't grow up with it. They don't think it's necessary. They think they'll just get a job and that'll be the end of it. There's nothing wrong with just working after you get out of high school. But most students lived up to the expectations I put on them. And I miss that, and I hope we can get back to that. I had a thought while I was talking about that, about expectations, and I lost it. So maybe it'll come back. Let me move on to this next thing, talking about students, talking about, oh, never mind. I got it. And see, this works. I found it in the file. I had to look in the file, but I found it. Okay. In high school, today, all across the country, in high school, the idea of college is pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, almost to the detriment of any other option. I have no problem with college. I think if it's for you, if you need it for what you want to do, that you got to do what you got to do. I had to get a degree to teach, and so I have no problem with college. Don't get me wrong. For the right career and the right people, it's a necessary thing. It's a good thing. Nothing wrong with learning, okay? But let me tell you a little story. A few years back, I'd say probably 8 to 10 years back now, I came home one August afternoon in South Texas. Use your imagination, it's even worse than that, okay? Humidity is about 100%, the temperature's hotter than that. Long day of work, I come home and I notice there's no other car in the driveway, so no one's home. I walk in, it is stifling hot. I mean, it is hot, humid, nasty, disgusting, wet, moist. Got working up a sweat just walking in, that kind of thing. Okay, that's how bad it was. So I did my due diligence, and I saw we still have an air conditioner. It's about all I knew about air conditioning. Okay, never run into this before. Every other place we lived, the air worked fine. Never had it cut off. So I call the AC guy that we use. Actually, my dad used, and he gave me the number. And I call him over, and he comes over. And it was something very minor. The drain hose had plugged. Okay, that was it. And he told me that, especially during the summer, during the warm months, you need to put some Clorox down there, then flush it with warm water so all the algae and all that kind of stuff is killed and flushed out so it doesn't back up. Okay, thank you very much, sir. He was there, maybe half an hour. He was here maybe half an hour. Got the bill, $100. $100. I imagine that's for an hour's worth of work, and there's a service charge, and then there's a fee on top of that. So I imagine that's for about an hour's worth of work. $100. Mr. BA here, Mr. Bachelor of Arts here, doesn't make $100 an hour. No one's calling me in the middle of the afternoon, please come teach me or my kid or whatever. No one does. But this guy, professional, knows his stuff, got training in AC, and he's in high demand in South Texas, probably March through November for air conditioning units. And he makes more than I do. I don't begrudge him that. It's a tough job. It is probably dirty. It is probably very hot all the time, and you got to get in some nasty places, attics, et cetera, et cetera. So, good for him. I'm making the point that some students who are better with their hands and doing things instead of learning bookwork can make good money in AC, plumbing, electrical, welding. And what do the counselors at school talk about? College. For everyone. Everyone needs to go to college. No, they don't. No, they don't. People who know how to work with their hands, who are mechanically inclined, can make some good money doing other things. So I told my kids, hey, if you need college, if you want to go to college, that's great. If you don't want to, if it's not for you, don't force it. You're just going to hate it. Okay, one has gotten her degree already. The others, I've got one working on a trade to get certified in a trade. And one is pretty close to finishing a college degree, although he's taking a break, so I don't know what's going to happen. And the other one's still in high school. So anyway, yeah, college isn't for everyone. You don't need college for everything people want to do in life. Okay, but that's been what's pushed and pushed and pushed at the school districts, and they need to show, or they need to talk about other options for students who that's not them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Because when you go to college, most people, that was a nice segue, wasn't it? Most people, that worked out very well. Most people, when they go to college, come out with student loan debt. Student loan debt. And these people, whether it be the parent who signed for it or the student themselves signed for it, they agree to borrow X amount of money. And when they finish college, and 6 months after that, I believe, the grace period needs to start working, that you start paying it back. So what in the hell was the deal when Joe Biden decided, we're just going to forgive some student loan debt? We're just going to forgive student loan debt. How does that work? Because you know what? I got a house payment, and I'd love for someone to forgive my house payment, my house debt. Can we do that? Well, no, it's not in the Constitution. That didn't stop corn pop. Yeah, we're going to just forgive these certain people. See, here it is, government deciding who's the winner and who's the loser. These certain people are going to get their debt forgiven, their college debt forgiven. Well, I signed up and I didn't read the fine print. Whose fault is that? I signed up, I didn't realize it'd be so much money. Well, whose fault is that for not paying attention? I signed up and they tricked me. They put a gun to your head and made you sign the paper? Anytime you're going to take on a liability, like a loan, for whatever reason, you better make sure you read it or get someone to read it who will tell you what's going to happen. Okay? Because it is not my fault you didn't read. It's not my fault that you owe this money. It's not society's fault. It's not the Democrats' fault. It's not the Republicans' fault. It's not your parents' fault. Unless they sign for it in your name. They're the guarantor, but you signed for it. Okay? It's no one's fault but yours. No one else's fault of why you owe this money. And for a politician, I don't care if it was Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, or George W. Bush, for any politician to come along and say, you know what, we're going to forgive your student debt. That is total BS. I don't understand how that can happen. I don't understand why anyone would think that's a good idea. Besides I'm going to say it, the leeches who think, we're owed debt forgiveness because I made a mistake. You're a buffoon if you believe that. All right? Nowhere should it be my responsibility to pay off what you owe? Because guess what? Those debts weren't just forgiven, they were going to be paid off somehow, probably by the government. Or if it was owed to the government, they'll just forgive it. So basically, it's less money for the government. I don't expect my parents, my siblings, my wife's family, my kids, I don't expect anyone to pay what I owe. And we need to get back in this country to a level of responsibility and accountability that is sorely lacking. The Epstein files. I know if they're released, some people on my side, some people on your side, some people in the middle, some people, I don't care who it is, they're going to be ruined, and they should be. If they were involved in that activity, they should be ruined. They should be publicly shamed, humiliated, and charged when appropriate. I don't care who is involved. They all need to be brought to justice. The Democrats, when they were in power, had a chance to release the Epstein files. Now the Republicans are in charge, they have a chance, or they have an obligation to release the Epstein files. Democrats had an obligation, Republicans had an obligation. Methinks these people in power are a little bit afraid to release them. How many of them are named? Guess what? There are employees. We should know what they're doing, so we can fire them next election. So release them all. President Trump, release them. Congress, get out of the way. Democrats, get out of the way. Release these files. Let the chips fall where they may. And let's clean house. Let's get rid of the trash, the garbage, the disgusting scum that were involved in all that. If they're in any positions of leadership, we don't need leaders like that. We need people who are good people, people who are upstanding people, people who value and honor and obey God. George Washington said himself, where is it here? Give me a minute. I got to keep talking, but give me a minute. I have it here. Oh, here it is. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. If you're guilty, I don't want you leading anything. I want you in prison. If you shattered children's lives, I want you in prison. If you did unspeakable things, I want you in prison where unspeakable things will probably be done to you once they find out why you're in. See how that goes. Okay? So, please put pressure on these people. Put pressure on these our leaders to release these files. Let's get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off, and let's get it done. Okay? It is time to stop fooling around with this. Stop farting around with this. Let it out and get rid of getting rid of bad rubbish. Okay? We the people who are the bosses of these people, of the senators, the congressmen, the president, the vice president, we the people who are the bosses demand this. Do it. The American people implore you, Mr. Trump, Congress, to release these files, rip the Band-Aid off, and let the healing begin. I talked a little bit earlier about congressional pay. I think Congress, average rank and file congressperson, senator gets about $175,000 a year. That's not all they get, but that's their pay. They get perks and privileges and all sorts of stuff that the normal people, that the bosses don't get. But they should get a base pay. It calls for the Constitution to get paid out of the Treasury of the United States for their service. But again, like I said earlier, the base pay for Congress should be whatever it is. One of their main jobs is to pass a budget every year. And yet they can't even do that on time sometimes. These people shirk their duties, pawn off their responsibilities, and they think they're the greatest gift to us. So here's the deal. No more blue ribbon commissions to talk about the deficit, talk about the debt. You do know what the difference is, right? In case you don't, let me go over it. Every fiscal year, now a fiscal year is 12 months. Doesn't matter when you start, it ends 12 months later. You could have a fiscal year start on November 1st. It ends the following year on October 31st. Your fiscal year can start on June 1st, and it ends the following May 31st. So it doesn't matter when you start a fiscal year starts whenever it ends 12 months later. Obviously, a calendar year starts on January 1st, ends on December 31st. Okay? So the federal government's, the national government's fiscal year, if I'm not mistaken, is October 1st through September 30th of the next year. So every fiscal year, they add up how much money they brought in taxes, mainly taxes, now tariffs, but mainly taxes. And then they see how much money they spent. If they spent less than they brought in, there's a surplus. It's got to be a lot of money if politicians have a surplus. It's about the only thing they do well is spend money. I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm just saying they're good at that. Okay? If, on the other hand, they total up how much was brought in, and they total up how much was spent, and the amount spent was more than they brought in, it's a deficit. Okay, that's a yearly, that is a yearly measure, surplus or deficit. Okay. Most years, I know there were a couple years in the late 60s and in the early 90s, 2 or 3 years each that we had, I believe, I could be wrong on that, but there was a time period in the late 60s, early, mid 1990s that we actually had a surplus on some of those fiscal years. Okay? Doesn't happen often. Again, it's got to be a lot of money if politicians can't spend it all for you, from you. So when you accumulate from George Washington's time all the way up through the last fiscal year that ended on September 30th of 2025, you total up all the deficits, subtract the surpluses, the few surpluses, and the accumulation of all that, those deficits, less the surpluses, is the debt. I haven't looked. There's a debtclock.org, D-E-B-T, debtclock.org, which will show you, they have an algorithm going that shows you basically right now where we're at for our debt, our national debt. and so last time I looked, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $38 trillion. $38 trillion of debt. We owe that. This country owes that. I owe it, you owe it, our kids, our grandkids, they all owe it. $38 trillion, and climbing. That's not the end of it. It's climbing. Because we Americans love when government gives us things for you, from you. Wouldn't it be nicer to keep your money and do things for yourself? Wouldn't it be better if you kept your money and did things for yourself and your family instead of depending on some jackal in Washington to take your money and then give stuff back to you, for you, from you? And 94% 95% of these jackals get reelected every election. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. To run for office, you have to have either very deep pockets, or you have to be able to go like this all the time. Can have some money, can have some money, can have some money. And when you get the money, they expect things from you. So how do you solve that? Well, one of the ways I think should be solved. This should be solved. Again, let me reiterate again about congressional pay. Yes, they deserve a pay. It's called for in the Constitution. A base pay. But if the budget is in deficit by 12%, they lose 12% of their pay the next year. That's just all there is to it. If you're not producing at your job, you get fired. Right? If they're not producing what they're supposed to do, they should at least suffer monetarily for it. Speaking of monetary, money, etc., all contributions to every elected office holder, president, vice president, senator, congressman, dog catcher, city councilman, school board member, county commissioner, whatever the elected position is. There should be a website which lists every single contribution to every single politician. How much, who contributed, and then let's see if there's some correlation between who contributes and what this senator, congressman, etc. does for that group or that person. Why can't we have full transparency? Every single dollar is put is put on that website. What day it happened, how much it was, who contributed, and then we can see if there's any relationship. Like there's not. We can see the relationship between who contributed and what favors they got. Okay, that sound like an invasion of privacy? Does that sound like something terrible, like something un-American? No, I think transparency is big. Transparency is very needed, very much needed when things are the way they are. Okay, it's just very simple, very simple. We need to know who's doing what and why are they doing it. And so that's my idea for campaign transparency. And in campaigns, you got to get elected. I told you have deep pockets, you pay for it yourself. If you don't have deep pockets, you're like this. Please, 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 please. You spend half your time raising money so you can run again. The system is pretty, it's like football in the sense of playoffs and Super Bowl. Okay, we got the Super Bowl going on tomorrow. Patriots and Seahawks. I really don't care who wins. I just hope it's a game. But anyway, it's like football. Okay, the Democrats. Let's talk about for governor. Okay, let's leave president out right now. Let's talk about governor. In any state, when there's a gubernatorial election, you have to have playoffs first before you go to the Super Bowl. So in state A, the Democrats who want to be governor run in their party to be the person to try to be elected governor. The Republicans within their party have people within the party who want to be governor fight among themselves until one comes out on top. Same thing with the Democrats. Now you have a Democrat and you have a Republican. They've won their conference championships, like in football, right? You have Seattle and New England, or New England and Seattle, whichever way you like. I don't care. Okay? Now, these two have won their championships, and then they go to the election for governor. And one of them wins, and then we move on. Okay? So that's how the system works. It's very simplified, obviously. There's caucuses and primaries for these people that have to go through the system in order to go to the general election or the Super in order to be elected. Okay, it's not just anyone can run in November and whoever wins wins. No, you have to fight among yourselves to get one champion, fight among themselves to get a second champion for the two parties, and then they go in November. One thing that confuses a lot of people, go ask 100 people in the mall to explain the Electoral College, and I'm guessing you're not going to get many people who could explain it. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Electoral College, and people want to do away with the Electoral College, and I'll tell you why that will probably, never say never, right, Justin Bieber? Never say never. Will probably never happen. Get rid of the Electoral College. Okay? So let's talk about it. As I said, the Electoral College is a group of people chosen from each state and the District of Columbia to formally select the president and vice president. So on Election Day in November, the Election Day happens the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Don't blame me, okay? They wrote into the Constitution that way, all right? So it could be as early as November 2nd or as late as November 8th. Okay, the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. So on Election Day, we go to the polls, and we all know how painful that can be. We go to the polls, and we select, I'll use the last election just for ease, we select either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Now, the reality is we're not voting for Trump or Kamala Harris. We are voting for electors who will then vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, okay? But I get ahead of myself. So again, the Electoral College is the group of people chosen from each state and the District of Columbia to formally select the president and vice president. So each state's Electoral College electoral vote total is equal to its number of representatives and number of senators. So in the Constitution, the Senate is made up, it was decided through the Constitutional Convention that the Electoral College, the Senate of the United States will be equal. Each state has 2 senators. In the House of Representatives, it is based, the number of representatives is based on your population. The more populous a state, the more representatives you get. Okay, but each state is guaranteed 1 representative. Wyoming, for example, decent sized state, right? Bigger than New Jersey. New Jersey has more congressmen because there's more population there. So the whole state of Wyoming is a district because Wyoming only gets 1 representative. So the smallest number of Electoral College votes a state can have is 3. Because remember, each state's electoral vote total is equal to its number of representatives and its number of senators. Okay, so 2 senators, 1 representative guaranteed. So that's the smallest amount of electoral votes a state will get. All right. Each state's political parties, the Democrats and Republicans, nominate that number of electors for Election Day. And when we go vote, we're voting for the electors. Their names aren't on the ballot. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's name are on the ballot, but you're voting for the electors. Democrats have a slate, let's say in Texas, I believe it's 38. I'd have to double check that. It's changed because we're growing so fast. It's changed. I believe it's 38, 36 representatives, 2 senators. So we have 38 electoral votes. So the Republicans come up with 38 electors. The Democrats come up with 38 electors. And they name those electors for Election Day. And again, only the president and vice president's name appear on the ballot. So here's what happens. We go vote. And if the Republican, let's talk about Texas. If Donald Trump won Texas by 1 vote, 1 single vote by you or me, or someone in El Paso probably, okay? So if they win by 1 vote, they get the state's entire electoral votes. That's most states. A couple states do it differently, but most states, it's winner take all. So Donald Trump beats Kamala Harris by 10 million votes or 1 vote. He gets all of Texas' 38 electoral votes. All right. So the number of the electoral vote total is the number of representatives plus number of senators. In the House of Representatives, there are 435 members of the House. In the Senate, there are 100 members of the Senate. So there's 535 electoral votes. Or are there? No, there's actually 538. Well, where did that 3 come from? Up until 1964, the election of 1964, people who lived in Washington, D.C., not work there. President Biden worked there. He lived in Delaware. President Trump works there. He lives in Florida. Excuse me. Our Congress people, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, works in Washington. He lives in Louisiana. Hakeem Jeffries, oh gosh, I think he works in New York, in Washington. He lives in New York, I believe, maybe New Jersey. All right. And so on and so on. So all these people we send to Congress, they only work there. They live in their home state, presidents included. But there are people who actually live in Washington, D.C. There are apartment buildings, there's homes and townhomes, condos. There are people who live there. That's their actual residence. They also work there because they work a regular job, like they work in restaurants or bars or gyms or schools or whatever the case may be. Up until the election of 1964, they didn't have a say-so in who became president. American citizens didn't have a say-so in who became president. District of Columbia, D.C. was split, what was land from Virginia and Maryland, I believe, gave up land to build the new capital, the nation's new capital. And so it doesn't belong to any state. It's the District of Columbia. And so the people that actually live there didn't belong to states. Only states vote in the Electoral College. And so they passed a constitutional amendment, and it took effect in the 1964 election, where D.C., no matter how many people it has, gets the number of electoral votes the smallest state gets, which is 3. Okay, so that's where the other 3 came from. So we have 538 total number of electoral votes. Back in math class, to win the presidency, you need to win a majority of the electoral votes, which is 538 divided by 2 is 269. Oh, a majority, that's half. You need half plus 1. So 269 equals 538, which is the total number of electoral votes. So you wouldn't have a winner. So the Electoral College, to win the presidency, you need 269 plus 1, which is 270. There's websites called 270 to win, and that's what they're talking about, okay? It talks about presidential politics, presidential elections. 270 to win, 270 to win, 270TOWin.com, I believe. Okay. So to win the presidency or vice presidency, a candidate must win half the electoral votes plus 1, which is 270. So we're going to go through the steps, the official steps. There's actually 3 official steps on how we elect a president. Okay, that's it. But most people don't understand this. Most people don't know this. Okay, so here's how it works. On election day, which is the Tuesday in November, we, the public, we vote for electors, even though the candidate's name are on the ballot. Okay, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in the last election. The winner of the popular vote in each state wins that state's electoral votes. For the most part. Nebraska does a little different, and I believe Maine does it a little different. But right now, that's how it works, okay? Now, that's step 1. Most of the time, we know the winner that evening. Most of the time, we know the winner that evening. Sometimes, lately, or in the recent past, for instance, in 2000, we didn't know until middle of December who actually won, or it was finally concluded at that point. But most nights we know who's won on election night. Okay, so that's step 1. If I'm going to use Texas, that's where I'm from. If Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris, which he did, the Democratic electors that the Democrats came up with are done. They have nothing else to do. They can go home and do whatever it is they do. The Republican electors, on the Monday after the second Wednesday in December, again, don't kill the messenger, all right? I'm just saying what's in the Constitution. The electors meet in their state capitals to cast their electoral votes. 1 vote for president and 1 vote for vice president. So the electors in California, which were Kamala Harris electors, the Democrats, they met in Sacramento on the Monday after the second Wednesday in December last year. And they cast their ballots, 1 for president, 1 for vice president. The electors in Texas, which were the Republicans, did the same thing in Austin, and they cast their votes for president and then vice president. In Florida, the Republican electors there, since the Republican won, Donald Trump won the state, they did the same thing in Tallahassee on that same day. And every state in the union does the same thing on the Monday after the second Wednesday in December in order to cast electoral votes. Now, it's still not official because the electors are not bound by anything to vote for who they're supposed to. In the year 2000, I believe a an Al Gore elector, I think in California, I could be wrong in that, did not vote, sustained, did not vote for Al Gore. It didn't make a difference. That one vote would not have made him president. But she thought it was unfair. She thought there was some shenanigans going on, some malarkey, as Joe Biden likes to say. She thought that was going on, and that was her way to protest. Now, in any case where these electors do the wrong thing, they don't vote supposed to, like in 1976, one Gerald Ford elector voted for Ronald Reagan. A difference because it wouldn't have made vote. So electors are not bound to vote for who they're supposed to. So they mark their ballots and they seal them in an envelope for president and then a second one for vice president. Why do they do that? Before we started breaking up into what our founding fathers called factions, so their political parties, what used to happen in the Electoral College, the winner of the first place votes, provided it was a majority, became president, and second place became vice president. Now that's all fine and good when you all believe pretty much the same way. But imagine if it was the same way today. Donald Trump would be president, Kamala Harris would be vice president. Not a workable, sustainable way of doing things. So they passed the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, which basically split the votes into two, one for president, second one for vice president. Okay? So the electors in their capitals, respective state capitals, on the Monday after the second Wednesday in December, vote for president, put it in an envelope, seal it, vote for vice president, put it in an envelope, seal it, and they send those to Washington, D.C. And on January 6th, before a joint session of Congress, you know, first time Bill Clinton heard that, he went running. He thought a joint session was something else. A joint session of Congress, that's when the House and Senate could get together at the same time. So on January 6th, before a joint session of Congress, the electoral votes are opened and counted. And then, and only then, do we know officially who will be the next president or re-elected president and vice president. So it's a three-step process, and it's not official until January 6th. 2 weeks later, on January 20th, the new president or the re-elected president take the oath of office for their term or second term, whatever the case may be. Okay? If it happens that no candidate receives a majority, it's 269, the House of Representatives will pick the president. That's based on states. Okay, each state gets one vote. So the Republicans control, 26 states. They have their congressional delegation is more than the Democrats in 26 states. They vote for the Republican, and the Democrats vote for the Democrat, and vice versa. And if that happens, the Senate picks the vice president. The Senate will pick the vice president. And they do that because the Senate, the vice president, is actually the president of the Senate. If you've ever seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, if you've ever seen that movie, and the senators stand up, they say, Mr. President, they're not talking to the President of the United States. They're talking to the President of the Senate, which is the Vice President of the United States. Okay. So that's how the system works. Some people say that's not right. Some people say we should just have a national vote, and whoever wins, wins. You total up the votes nationwide for candidate A, nationwide for candidate B, and whoever wins, wins the presidency. Okay? You think cheating is bad now? You think cheating is horrible now? Can you imagine if every vote counted nationwide? Your vote does count in your state. But if every vote counted nationwide, the Republicans would take advantage where they could, the Democrats would do the same thing. And it would be a bigger mess than we have now. I'll get back to that here in just a minute. All right. So if it was a nationwide popular vote, it would be a bigger mess. Not to mention, the most populous states would make the decision for everyone else. All right? The most populous states, candidates would only have to campaign in New York, California, Florida, Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and just ignore everyone else. Okay, just ignore everyone else. Because if you're going for sheer numbers, you got to go to where the people are. But the Electoral College makes candidates pay attention to smaller states because every electoral vote matters. Just ask President Gore. Oh wait, there was not a President Gore. You know, the funniest thing about Vice President Gore trying to become president, it all came down to Florida, right? If you remember, it came down to Florida. That's when Florida didn't have their final decision until December something. The funny, ironic thing is, Al Gore was, before he was vice president to Bill Clinton, he was a senator from Tennessee. And had he only won his home state, Al Gore lost his home state to George W. Bush. Florida would not have mattered. Had Al Gore won his home state, he would have been President Gore. But we need to amend the Constitution. I just think if the people that know you best don't want you, you shouldn't be president. And so that's the funny thing. That's the very funny thing, because President Gore can blame Florida all he wants. I'm sorry, Vice President Gore can blame Florida all he wants. But it doesn't matter. Had he won Tennessee, he'd have been president. All right, so let's talk about why we will probably never go to a nationwide popular vote. Follow without numbers, but just stick with me, all right? In 2000, the popular vote, Wyoming had a grand total of 208,430 votes for president, both major parties and any minor parties. 105,400,000 cast nationwide, rounding numbers, of course. Okay, that was 0.002% of the total. Right. All right. The electoral vote total for Wyoming was 3. Wyoming is very sparsely populated. They're guaranteed 1 representative. They're guaranteed 2 senators, and so they get the smallest number of electoral votes the state can have, which is 3. They had 3 electoral votes out of 538. They came out to 0.006%, 3 times the amount of strength their popular vote had. Now, if you remember 2000, George W. Bush lost nationwide the popular vote, not that it matters, but Al Gore. So Wyoming had a say-so in who became president, because George W. Bush only got 271 electoral votes. It's not like he ran away with it. But so their 3 electoral votes mattered. Had every one of the 208,430 votes, popular votes in Wyoming, gone to George Bush, Al Gore would have gotten none. The Green Party, none. The Libertarian Party, none. The Green Party, none. Whatever party, none. If George Bush received every single vote in the state of Wyoming, it still wouldn't have mattered. It still would not have mattered, because Al Gore beat him by, I forget, what was it? 3 million, 4, 5 million, I don't know. Nationwide, he beat him by more than 208,000 votes. So in the popular vote, Wyoming's nationwide did not matter, would not have mattered, even if George Bush had gotten every single vote in Wyoming. But their 3 electoral votes mattered. So that's why small states, there are more smaller states, there are more small states than there are big states. And that's why small states will never give up that leverage, and they shouldn't. The small states should have a say in who becomes president. The Electoral College guarantees that. Our founding fathers, I know everyone has their faults, but our founding fathers were absolutely brilliant in the sense of how they set it up so small states would have a say-so in who became president. And probably most of the influential ones were from the bigger states. They could have set it up to make it easy and good for them. But they believed that small states should have a say in who becomes president. So they set up the Electoral College to make that happen. There are 2 major strengths of the Electoral College. It's a known process. All the other proposed fixes, we don't know how they would work. We don't know what would happen at that point. And in most cases, it identifies the winner of the presidency certainly and quickly. Most of the time, we don't have to wait till December to find out who becomes president. Most of the time, it's that night. Okay? So our founding fathers, brilliant men. Our founding fathers were people of, at the time, great wealth, great education. They had the most to lose by when they declared independence, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Had the most to lose, and but they set it up to be fair. They set it up to be fair. I know. Some of you are saying, "Oh, well, how come they didn't get rid of slavery?" Well, you know what? the Commerce and Slave Trade Compromise, there were some people who wanted to get rid of slavery, but it was a contentious issue, and at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, there was a compromise called the Commerce and Slave Trade Compromise. The commerce part was that the United States, the national government, would not tax exports. Okay, and what were big exports at the time? Agriculture. Okay, and so southern states, slave-owning states. Okay, and they would leave they didn't say slavery is going to be enshrined in the Constitution. They basically said we're going to leave the slavery question alone for 20 years. Okay, so yes, they kicked the can down the road, just like most politicians. And so, no, not perfect, but don't forget, it was the Western democracies, the Western world that fought to end slavery. Did we benefit from it? Yes. But who fought to get rid of it? Western democracies, Western allies. United States. We had a bloody civil war for 4 years over the issue of slavery. There were some other issues as well, states' rights, etc. But one of the big things was slavery. And so, no, not perfect. Our founding fathers were not perfect, but they did a lot of good things. They did a lot of very good things, a lot of things that we take for granted now, and we it's easy to look back and say, you should have, we should have, they should have. Don't we do that in our own lives? I should have taken that job back then. I should have asked that girl out. I should have said yes when that guy asked me out. Talking about the ladies now, okay? And so, yes, we can look back and nitpick. We can look back and say that was horrible, wrong. And yes, slavery was horrible. It is horrible. It's still going on today, all right? But remember, we're the ones who fought to end it. We're the ones who fought to end it. So we participated, but we also tried to end it. We did end it, okay? So that's the brilliance of our founding fathers should not be overshadowed by the mistakes they made. It's easy to look back and make better decisions, different decisions than we did when it happened, because we're human. We look back and hindsight is 20/20. And I think it's very important to remember that. It's hard. It's not. It's not easy to look back and judge people in history with our mindset, with our enlightenment. That's all they knew. That's all they knew. If no one had ever taught them any different, how would they know? All right. So we look back and we say they should have. Well, we do that in our own personal lives as well. We do that in relationships, in jobs, when we think of that comeback that someone insulted us, and we think of the comeback, but we think about it 2 weeks later. I should have. Okay, things happen. All right. Let's see what else we got here before we get into. Hope you're enjoying this. Hope you're learning something. I do want to talk one more thing. This is like the last page of my notes. I have other things to do, but last page of the notes that I wanted to make sure and talk about. The nominating process. Remember I talked about how running for office is like football. You have the AFC playoffs and the NFC playoffs, and the winner of the NFC playoffs and the winner of the AFC playoffs play for the Super Bowl. Okay? Same thing with running for any office. Democrats fight among themselves, one wins. Republicans fight, one wins, and they go for whatever office they're running for. Let's talk specifically about the presidential process. Are these the best people we can get? Are these the best people we can get? We look back on all these last elections and we think, is that the best we have to offer? Can't we do anything better? Can't we do better? Honestly, I think as a society, we're getting the people. Politics is downstream of culture. Politics is downstream of culture. When the culture rots, so do our politicians. Because we don't hold them to a standard because we're not doing it ourselves. For instance, have you noticed in interviews with leaders, including the president, including the minority leaders in the House and Senate, etc. The level of crass language, the level of just schoolyard talking, the F this and F that, and he's a this, he's a that. It's embarrassing, and it's disturbing, and it's disgusting. I expect more from our leaders than talking like a sixth grade hoodlum who's trying to prove they're macho. But that's where we're at. Politics is downstream from culture, and our culture is sick, and our culture is disturbing, and our culture is it's falling apart. It's falling apart. We hold nothing sacred. We hold anything goes. Anyone can say anything, and there's no decorum, and there's no, I told you I'm a teacher. I work at schools. We decided to homeschool for some of these very reasons, but also because of the flexibility of homeschool, because of the idea that when you're teaching a homeschool student, if they are getting something, you can move on quickly. If they need a little more time on something, you can spend that time. As a classroom teacher, I have 25 students in my room. I can't go too fast because I'll lose the ones that aren't getting it as well. I can't go too slow because then this person will get, the higher achievement person will get bored and probably start acting out and being destructive, etc. So I have to kind of aim for right in the middle. Okay, and I move on, and these people didn't get it, or I'm here and this person already got it, and so he wants more. So I have to go for middle of the road as far as pacing goes. As you homeschool, you can adjust to each child the pacing which fits them best. So that's one of the reasons we did it. We did it for our religious education, for keeping God in your daily life. You don't go to school and God's not there, and then you come home and He is. No, God is, for us, He's everywhere. He's in our daily lives. He's in when we're in school, when we're at home, when we're at church, when we're at the park, when we're at a game, when we're shopping, whatever. God is there, and He's part of our lives. And so that's what the main reason we decided to homeschool was, to instill that in our children. But our politicians are embarrassing. And it's not just in the United States. It's all over the world. The politicians are getting more and more embarrassing. And, it is what it is. So how do we get our nominating process right now? The way it works is Iowa is always first. Okay, the state of Iowa always votes first. There are caucuses and there are primaries. A caucus is when a group of like-minded people get together to select who they support. A primary is a intra-party election for the most part. There's variances, but basically you go into a voting booth by yourself and you pick from among the people who said they're running for president in your party only. Okay, remember, you're trying to get the champion of the Republicans, champion of the Democrats to go against each other. And so the way it works now, Iowa is first. A week later, New Hampshire votes. And then South Carolina, and there's various states and various days go through the whole process, and they vote or have caucuses or primaries to vote for who they think should be the nominee. And once all those are over, as long as the person gets a required number of delegates, the people who support them, they become the nominee for each party, and then they go against each other in November. I have a better idea. Okay, why does Iowa always have to go first? Why does New Hampshire go second? Here's what should happen. We should break the country up. We have 50 states, and you have Washington, D.C., the territories, and et cetera, they vote in the primaries and caucuses, okay? And so they need to be included as well. Not for president. The people of Puerto Rico, while American citizens, are not a state, so they don't vote for president. So, but for the nominating elections, you have to include all the territories. You have to include the Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands, et cetera, and so there's a total of course I didn't look beforehand, but there's more than 50. And so what my idea is this: you break the country up mainly into states, by states, into 10 10 different groups. Okay. For instance, I believe, if I remember correctly from my map, there's a video on this on November 15th, 2024. I put out a video that explains this in more detail with maps and everything, so if you want to check that out, go for it. So you break the states up into 10 groups of 5. I think with all the territories and stuff, there's 11 groups of 5, but you can see that on the video. So for instance, I think group 1 that I put together is California, Oregon, and Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii. Group 2 might be Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and gosh, I don't remember which one. But you get it. There are 11 groups of 5, and you have 1 year. The first group number 1 goes first, and then group 2, then group 3, group 4, group 5. Okay. Second. I'm sorry. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Second, next election, presidential election year, group 2 goes first, and then you go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and group 1 goes to the 11th spot. Next time, group 2 goes to the end, and group 3 steps up, etc., etc. You can watch this whole video, November 15th, 2024, called A Better Nominating Process. It's Governminute solutions that I think should be good. It gives other states a chance to decide who the ultimate nominee is, instead of Iowa and New Hampshire always getting a chance to. Let's face it, in Iowa, if you don't finish first or second, you're done. There's just no recovering from that. New Hampshire, pretty much the same thing. All right. So by the time we get Super Tuesday, which is sometime in, Iowa starts at the end of January or beginning of February. New Hampshire's a week later, and then South Carolina. By the time you get to Super Tuesday, where a lot of states vote, you might only have two or three candidates left instead of 6 or 7, which sometimes the parties start out with. So I think my idea is to group the states into 11 groups of 5, and each group gets a turn to go first. Will be fairer for the whole country. Why shouldn't Texas, with the second most population, ever have a chance to go first to try to set the tone for who's going to become the nominees for the parties? It just makes sense, and I think we should do it. So again, Better Nominating Process, November 15th, 2024. Please check it out and see what you think. Leave some comments. Speaking of which, I've seen some of you comment, but some of you on my regular videos, man, it's very dusty down there. There's looks cobwebs in the comment section. Okay, I'd appreciate it if you give me your thoughts, if you give me your ideas, if you tell me I'm full of it. That okay, you have your opinion. You're wrong, but you have your opinion. I think you have you also have email, governminute@gmail.com, governminute@gmail.com. You can email me there as well. So please do. I'd love to hear from you, see what you have to say. So when our candidates nomination, the Democrat Party now has its nominee for president. The Republican Party now has its nominee for president, and they have because this is made official in late July and August. Okay, so basically they have from September, October, 2 full months, and maybe a week, depending on the date of election day, or an all-out sprint to go and try to make the case to the American people why they should be president, why the other person should not be president. It's a grueling 2 months, going place to place, saying the same speech over and over. And Walter Mondale, who ran for president in 1984 against Ronald Reagan, got trounced 49 states to 1. He also won the District of Columbia, but he got a total of 13 electoral votes out of 538. Walter Mondale was from Minnesota, and the thinking is, had Ronald Reagan really tried, he probably could have won Minnesota, but his team felt like, give the man his dignity, let him win his home state. Something Al Gore couldn't do. So this is, when they have their nominees, the nomination, they give their speeches, their nominating acceptance speech. They say, I accept your nomination for president. And then they have about a 2-month sprint to the finish line. Walter Mondale, who I was talking about, Walter Mondale told in a book I read, told about the grueling schedule of this 2-month sprint of going place to place to place to place and sleeping on the plane and eating bad food and trying to get some rest and trying to look alive and all this kind of stuff, and giving the same speech over, your mind starts getting clouded and crowded about where you are, who you're seeing. So he talked about how in his case, looking for a prop here, in his case, he would have, one of his aides would give him a paper or a note card that he'd have in his pocket, and when they introduced him, he'd come out, hello, Milwaukee, thank you. No, he wouldn't say Milwaukee. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for coming out on this cold night. I'm really looking forward to winning, and I need your help, blah, blah, blah. And the crowd dies down, and he has written on his note card where he is, who he's talking to, and how many days are left of the election. So after the initial excitement dies down, he'd be like, I really love coming to Milwaukee. It's great to see you, the Teamsters Union. I love coming before you and being able to connect with you and talk to you and tell you how much I need your help to become president on November 2nd so we can throw Ronald Reagan out of the office. Yay! Okay, and then he'd put the card back in his pocket at the end of the speech. After the speech, he can go off stage. He'd give it to one of his aides, who would then give him another card. He'd put it in his pocket. He'd go back to the plane or bus or whatever he's on, and fall asleep and do the same thing the next stop, because it's a grueling process and it's to do. So the acceptance speech. We're within an hour, by the way. The acceptance speech at the convention with the nominees give. They basically introduce themselves to the American people. Most Americans don't start paying attention closely until the elections. Until the nominating conventions, which is, like I said, late July, early August. And then really after Labor Day, the first Monday in September, they really start paying attention, and they then decide in the last month or two on who they're going to vote for. But when they give their acceptance speech, they introduce themselves, they talk about who they are, why they're running, what they want to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of it is just same thing, good jobs, good wages, education, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Same thing over and over. It's politician speak. They say a lot of words, but they don't say anything. They talk in platitudes. They talk in trademarked, the thumb with the finger, and how that emphasizes how they want good jobs, they want good wages, and they want the American people to be successful. Blah, 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 blah. Yay! Right? Okay. Bunch of BS. Okay. For most politicians, go from that same dictionary thesaurus. They make their speeches out of the same thing, with the same words, the same dictionary, the same thesaurus. I gave a speech. I made up an acceptance speech most Americans would want to hear. Okay, and I did it in the summer of 2024. And there's a video that I'd love for you to go watch. It's called "The Acceptance Speech Most Americans Want to Hear," or Americans Want to Hear. July 22nd, 2024. After we're done here, stay on. After we're done here, please, when you get a chance, check it out and see if that's something you would have liked to hear from a politician. Okay. So we are less than an hour away from finishing the 3-hour and 45-minute filibuster. Can you get me my teacher's edition of the government book? I think it's in the closet. Okay, so we're going to go over the Declaration of Independence and briefly over the main parts of the Constitution. Most Americans don't know these. Most Americans, I bet you could ask 100 people at the mall. If you can find 100 people in a mall, I bet you could ask them where do rights come from, and the majority would say from the government. And that's sad, and that's disturbing, because if the government can give it to you, they can also what? They can take it away. And so, thank you. And so they're misinformed and they're ignorant. We can fix ignorance, right? But you have people, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, who ran for vice president with Hillary Clinton back in the day, 2016. He, in a congressional hearing sometime last year, basically laughed and thought it was dangerous to believe that God gives rights, that God is the grantor of rights, even though that's what the Declaration of Independence says. He likened it to the government in Iran, to believe that a higher power gives you rights when it's government that gives you rights. You can check out that video as well about Tim Kaine believing that the rights come from government. Our founding fathers, again, very brilliant men in their own right, for what they knew, for what they've experienced, and they came up with a masterpiece of eloquence and persuasion in the Declaration of Independence. So we're going to go over it. If you've never gone over it, you should. Every American should. Every American should know this, or at least be familiar with it. My students used to have to listen to this all the time, so now it's your turn. All right. So the Declaration of Independence, largely the work of Thomas Jefferson. And so this is what they came up with, the Declaration of Independence. In Congress, July 4th, 1776. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Boy, it's hard to read when your mouth is dry. But that's what the filibuster says, so we're going with it. Less than an hour now. Basically, he said, hey, when we're going to do this, we owe the rest of the world an explanation. Not only that, but when the rest of the world hears this, when they read this, they're going to say, hey, I wonder if the Americans need any help. The French, for sure, wanted some help or to control. Okay, back live. I saw disconnected for a moment. The French, for sure, wanted any chance they could to kick England's butt for whatever reason. Longtime enemies. And so basically, we're already starting to say, hey, world, here we are. We owe you the reasons why we're doing this. And then if you want to help, well, okay. All right, continuing on. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are, I can't leave, I forgot. That all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, Mr. Senator Kaine, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. All men don't have the same thing, don't have the same outcome, don't have the same ending. And men means mankind, okay? It includes women. All men are created equal. You have the same opportunities to use your talents, your gifts, your hard work, your gumption, your drive, whatever it is, you have the same chance as anyone else to make it. And we've seen in this country tons of people who came from nothing, no connections, no family, no money, and have made it. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Senator Kaine, this is just for you. You blooming idiot who thinks that rights come from government. They are endowed, meaning men, by their Creator. It doesn't say Yahweh or Jesus or it doesn't say Mother Nature. It doesn't say whoever. It applies to everyone, whatever your beliefs, whoever your Creator is. You are endowed by that being with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable rights. Rights that can't just be taken away from you willy-nilly. Can't believe I just said willy-nilly, but I did. Among these, not all of them, among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? There's no way to list them all, but those are the biggest ones. Life, can't take your life for no reason. Liberty, can't take your freedom just because they don't like you or they don't like what you say. And pursuit of happiness. Hey, you find what makes you tick, what makes you go, what makes you productive, what makes you money, what makes you whatever, and go for it. As long as you're not infringing on anyone else's rights, you're good. People get mad that Bill Gates is so rich. Why are you mad? Should I say bro? Because that's what they're saying a lot these days. Why are you mad, bro? Why are you mad? He created a product. He didn't make anyone buy his product. You didn't go to the store and were held up by the clerk forced to take out your debit card or your credit card or your cash and pay for Windows. No, no, no. You beat a path to his door, his business door, to buy his product. And it made him rich. And good for him. I hold no ill will, no jealousy, no anything against anyone who has used legal, ethical ways to make money, and they made it big. Good for them. I'm happy for them. I hope to be in that spot one day. Have I mentioned you should subscribe? Have I said that yet? I think I did, but I noticed someone else just joined. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. All right. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Governments are made to secure the rights your Creator gave you. That is why governments were formed, not to lord over people, not to pick winners and losers, not to say you can do this, you can do that. No, no, no. They are formed according to our founding fathers, our Declaration of Independence, the bedrock, the cornerstone of who we are and what we believe in. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers, getting their fair power from the consent, from the okay of the governed. And that when any of these forms of government becomes destructive of the ends of securing the rights God gave you, your Creator gave you, it is the right of the people to get rid of it or to alter it and to come up with a new process, a new configuration, a new system, which will, to them, most likely affect their safety and happiness. So governments are instituted to secure rights your Creator gave you. That's it. And if it becomes destructive of their reason for existing, it is the right, not the suggestion. It is the right of people like me, like you, like my kids, like my wife, like my in-laws, like my family. It is the right of people to get rid of it, or to abolish it, or get rid of it, abolish it, or to change it, make changes to it that will make it likely that they will support their safety and happiness. Okay, continuing on. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown, that's how they spoke back then, that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Prudence, good judgment will say you don't change just because you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and said, I'm mad, I'm tired of this government, let's just change it. No, there's got to be a good reason. There's got to be a good reason for this, because you don't do it for something that's fashionable today and will be out of fashion tomorrow. Light and transient causes. Okay? All experience has shown that we are mankind, are more disposed to suffer while it's bearable than to change the things that we're used to. I told you earlier, we're creatures of habit. I told you earlier, you probably sit in the same spot at church if you go to church. I told you probably take the same route home and to and from work, for the most part. I told you that you probably, when you were in school, sat in the same area of the cafeteria. I told you all this because we are creatures of habit. We will put up with a lot because we're used to it. Remember I talked about education earlier? Well, the whole thing about education is we're still stuck in the 1800s idea of education because we're used to it. Change is hard. Change is difficult. It takes effort, right? You can just float along daily life and not have to put forth much effort for that. But if you want to change whatever it is, If you want to work out, it's going to be hard. If you want to eat better, it's going to be hard because we're used to a certain thing. Isn't that right, honey? She says yes. All right. We are used to the way we do things. And so they're saying Thomas Jefferson, along with his co-workers, or I'm sorry, his part of the 5-person committee, okay, that put this together. That we are more disposed to suffer rather than put forth the effort to change it. So you don't change things just because. You do it because it's so bad you don't have a choice. All right. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, talking about the people, it is their right, their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Long train. Thomas Jefferson is doing a marvelous job here of propaganda. Now, propaganda is always seen in a negative light. Nazi propaganda, right-wing propaganda, left-wing propaganda. Okay, propaganda is information. All right. Now, yes, you usually slant it toward your way if you're the author. And look what he's doing. Not just when we've been suffering, a long train. It just didn't happen yesterday because the light and transient causes thing. We're not going to do that for change our government for light and transient causes. But a long train of abuses and usurpations taking power away from someone who has it. If, as a teacher, I would sometimes give my students an assignment, in class. You're going to spend, this group is going to spend, we're going to spend the next 15, 20 minutes going over this section. You do that by yourself. This group takes care of another section. This group takes care of another section. Y'all are going to teach us the class of your section. You're going to get up, your group is going to get up and teach that part. Part of it is to get other seats. Part of it is collaboration. Part of it is to, when you have to teach something, you learn it better. When I started teaching government, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten how much I forgot. Okay, but then I had to learn it again because I had to teach it. So that was part of it. And so if group one gets up and they're supposed to be teaching from the section that they have, and they're doing a poor job, I just say, forget it, I'll do it. I just usurped their authority. I just took their authority. I gave it to them. I said, you're going to do it. And then when it wasn't to my like, I just abused them and said, no, I'm taking it. It's mine now. I'm going to do it. Okay? So that's what usurpation is. Long train of abuses and usurpations. All right? Not just one or two times. A long train, okay? Evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Now he's a despot. Now the king is a despot. And so it's our right and duty, is our duty to throw off such government and provide a government which we think will take care of it. Will take care of our future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. You like the word choice? Patient sufferance. We haven't kicked and screamed and yelled and held our breath till we turned blue. We've been patient. We've been suffering patiently. We are a good people. Okay? The word choices really, really put us in a good light. Well, of course, we are in a good light, right? Unless you're watching from England, you probably don't think so. But we are in a good light, right? But the word choices matter. And it's another thing I try to tell my students as we talked about this stuff, and I would tell them the same things. I would tell them that to be aware of how words are used to sway them and to pay attention to that stuff, okay? Especially like in advertising, in political writings, et cetera, et cetera. Be careful on how things are written since you're aware of it. Okay. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. There it is. We've been injured and usurped repeatedly, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. All right, there it is. Repeated injuries and usurpations. He keeps beating us up, but we keep going back to him. He beats us up and we go back to him. He beats us up and we go back to him. But now we've had enough. Now we're saying it's enough. Okay? We're not doing this, as they said, for light and transient causes. We're doing it because it's enough. Long train of abuses, usurpations, repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the direct object to establish a tyranny. He's tyrannical. And no, that's not a dinosaur, okay? He's tyrannical. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Okay, there's the wording again. Let facts. You can't argue with facts, right? It's a fact. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. That's great writing. Let facts be submitted to a candid world. Great writing. Here are the facts, all right? And I'm not going to go over every single one because it's like a scorned woman complaining about her husband, right? It goes, if you look at, this is the book I'm using, right? It goes, starts down here, all the way down here, all the complaint, and to about the middle of here. All right, so I'm not going to go over them all. I am going to go over some of the wording, how they started each complaint, so you can see what we're dealing with. He has refused. He has forbidden. He has refused. He has called together legislative bodies at unusual places. He has dissolved representative houses. He has refused. He has endeavored. He has obstructed. He has made judges dependent on his will. He has erected a multitude of new offices. He has kept among us in time of peace standing armies. He has effected to render the military independent of civil power. He has combined with others. He has quartered large bodies of troops. He has affected these troops by mock trial. He's cut off our trade, imposing taxes, deprived us of trial by jury, transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally our form of our governments, for suspending our legislatures, abdicating government here, plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He has done everything except eat puppies and kitties for breakfast. He is really a bad guy. He is really a bad guy. Yeah, my students feel that way too. Okay, let's see. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of mercenaries. He has constrained our fellow citizens. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, etc., etc., etc. Okay, this guy's a really bad guy. And so that's why we're declaring our independence. So now, after that big warm-up and the big delivery, now it's time to get calm and rational again. Now, I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson and his writing. So what have we done because of all that? In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. You got to hand it to Tom, right? He's doing a masterful job. In every stage, we have petitioned. We haven't demanded, screamed, yelled, fought. We've petitioned. Okay? Please don't. Please help me. Please. Okay? In humble terms, Your Majesty, O great King, please listen to our objections. Please listen to our objections and what we want, and please let us know what we're doing or what you're doing and why you're doing it, because we don't understand. We're patient and we're very humble. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Only by repeated injury. This guy listens to humble petitions and he just hits us again. And we come back nice and calm and very sweet and kind. This is how Thomas Jefferson is presenting us to the rest of the world. The facts to the rest of the world. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. He said, okay, this guy, he's a tyrant, so he is not fit to be the ruler of a free people. Just one moment, please. Belinda. Yeah. I'm still talking. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Now, they continue on. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. They said, not only have we petitioned the king, not only have we told the king what we feel, how we feel, but our British brothers as well. They say, look, we're the same people. We're all British. Hey, guys, come on, help us out here. We have told them, we have warned them of attempts of the legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction. Leave us alone. You got to remember, by the time this is happening, for many years, the colonists had been dealing with daily life on their own, all the little things, the day-to-day stuff. Now, Britain took care of foreign relations and the Native Americans, or as we call them when we were young, Indians, and trade with other countries, etc., etc. They took care of the big stuff. We took care of the little stuff. Imagine, if you will, when you were, 22, and you finished your degree. If you went to college, you don't have to go back in this live stream and check that out. And you move into your own apartment. You finally got a job. Your parents helped you out a lot, and so you're very grateful. But you got a job, and it's Sunday night, and you're ready to watch Sunday Night Football. Sorry, I'm going from this at a guy's perspective. Okay, if you want to watch Touched by an Angel, okay, that's fine. Whatever. Not that girls can't watch football. Not that guys can't watch Touched by an Angel. Okay. That's all I need for some woke person to think I'm being sexist or something. Anyway, and you've already called Domino's, and you're on your couch, the pregame is on, and you're sitting there, and you're waiting, and it's your favorite team playing, of course. And it's a nice evening, you got to work in the morning, and you hear, and you wonder, what in the world? Pizza's here already? And you go open the door, thinking, okay, it's the pizza. And you open the door, and it's Mom and Dad. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. What are you doing? What are you doing here? They have suitcases. Well, honey, we didn't want to worry you, but we're going to have to stay with you for a little bit. Damn, you got the 2-bedroom, right? We're going to have to stay with you for a little bit. Why? Well, we lost the house because of all our help with your education. We lost the house, and, we're going to, once we get the settlement of the house, we're going to be able to move into our own apartment, whatever. But we have to live with you for a little while. What can you say? They helped you through college, they raised you, okay. And they come in, and we're going to go set up in the bedroom. And now the night's ruined, and you got to share your pizza, and you're going to take some for lunch tomorrow. And about 10 o'clock, the game's still on. It's overtime. It's an exciting game. And from the second bedroom, your dad, hey, keep it down out there. I'm trying to go to sleep. Oh, boy, here we go, right? So you turn down the volume, and you listen, and you watch the rest of the game, and you go to sleep. And in the morning, you wake up, and, well, Dad's in the bathroom doing who knows what. But your newspaper's not there, so who knows? And so Dad's in the bathroom. Mom's making you eggs. Here, honey, I made you some breakfast. Mom, I don't like eggs. Yeah, but you got to eat something, Mom. I don't really like eggs. I didn't eat them at home, and I don't want to eat them now. But you got to eat something because protein's good for you, blah, 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 blah. And so if you're a female, same thing. But you come out and what does your mom say? You're going to wear that to work? How are you ever going to find a man if you don't wear something nicer? And Dad comes out of the bathroom, guys, and he says, you don't wear a tie to work? How come? I always wore a tie to work. And he hands you the newspaper. And so you're like, I'm just going to pick up some coffee on the way to work. Hey, Dad says, let me take you to work. I got to take your car in. I took it this morning to pick up some coffee at McDonald's because I don't go to them Starbucks places. They're too expensive. That's crazy coffee. Blah, 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 blah. And he goes, the check engine light came on. I got to take it in for you. Okay. And so he takes you to work, blah, blah, blah. And how well is that going to work? How well is that going to make you feel? It's not. And basically, by this time, our colonists, they've been running their own lives for the most part. Yeah, when you're in college, you need a break job and you don't have the money. Hey, Dad, I have some money. I need a break job. Yeah, sure. Okay, so you go to Dad and Mom for your big needs, but all the daily stuff. Do you ask your mom where you're going to work, where you should work? Do you ask your mom what you should eat? Do you ask your mom what you should wear? No, of course not. You take care of all the basic daily stuff, and the big stuff Mom and Dad help out with. Okay? So by this time, our colonists are in the same boat. They've been taking care of all the normal, everyday today stuff. And Britain was way over there. If you had to ask them something, it was about a 30-day trip across the ocean and another 30 days to get an answer because, no telephone, no telegraph, no nothing. And so you had a 60-day window, and if you ask about something and you need an answer tomorrow, you kind of have to do things on your own. Now, our colonists were doing that. Our colonists were still, again, doing everything themselves for the most part. And now the king came to power and said, no, we're going to put these colonists in their place. We're going to make them toe the line and start behaving like colonists instead of an independent country, which they think they are. So our founding fathers said, we've been talking to our British brothers. We have told them, hey, don't try to micromanage our lives. We got this. Don't try to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. Continuing, we have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They said, look, we told them, hey, we're you, all right? We are part of you. Do you remember we came over Jamestown and Plymouth Rock and the whole 9 yards, and we all came over, and the Virginia settlement, et cetera, et cetera. We are all British, so why aren't you helping us? We have appealed to their native justice. Native, in other words, built-in justice. They don't want special treatment. All they want is justice. All they want is justice. That's all. Nothing special, no special favors, just justice. And their magnanimity, their goodness, their kindness. We said, hey, come on, guys, help us out. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations. We said, guys, if you won't let the king do this to you in England, usurp your power in England, why are you letting him do that to us? You would never stand for it, so why won't you stand for us? We are the same people. If he does it to us, he can do it to you. Pay attention to what's happening. Let's do this. Help us out. But they too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. They too have not listened to simple justice, not special treatment, justice, and of consanguinity, blood relations. They have not listened to that we are blood related. They have not listened to that. And so they go on, we must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, England, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. So they basically say, well, since we tried with the king, we tried with our brothers, we tried with Parliament, and they didn't answer and they didn't help us, and they don't, try to work out something with us, we're going to now say we're going to declare our independence. We don't want to, that's what we have to do, and if you want war, we'll be enemies, but if you want peace, we'll be friends. And now here comes the payoff. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and ought to be free and independent states. Oh, there we go. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all the other acts and things which independent states may have right to do. So they basically say, well, here it is, we're free. We have declared ourselves free. We are no longer part of Great Britain. We are a free people. We can levy war, we can conclude peace, we can contract alliances, establish commerce with you, or anyone else we want. But we are free people, and we do all those things which independent states may do. Okay? And the last sentence, excuse me. And for the support of this declaration, and with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is where John Hancock wrote his name very large on the paper. The legend is, he said he didn't want the king to have to get his glasses to see his signature. He was so proud of it. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. These guys, these men that signed this declaration, starting with John Hancock, and some very familiar names to a lot of people. Samuel Adams, John Adams, Elbridge Gerry, Roger Sherman, John Witherspoon, Samuel Chase, Charles Carroll, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Francis Lightfoot Lee, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, George Ross, Edward Rutledge, John Penn. and others. These guys, by signing this Declaration of Independence, these guys signed their own death warrant. Because believe it or not, when the king got word of this, or got wind of this, when he found out what those bratty little colonists had been up to, he didn't just say, well, I guess they're free. What can we do about it? When you want to kill a snake, what do you go for? What do you try to get to? Its head. Here's the head of the snake, all nicely written all together, so the British troops can go find them and kill them and get the rest of those colonists in line. When the people saw what they did to these people that signed this, the rest would just say, no, you know what, never mind. I really didn't want to be free. I was just going along. It wasn't my thing. It was Thomas Jefferson. It was his fault. These guys paid dearly. A lot of them paid very dearly for this. But they pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. We owe them a debt of gratitude we can never pay, other than to keep it going for those who come after us, for our kids and our grandkids, our posterity. Their lives, some lost their lives in the Revolutionary War. Some were badly mistreated, some were held prisoner, died of injuries, mistreated that they died in prison. Their fortunes, these guys were not your average run-of-the-mill, ordinary riffraff of the colonies. They weren't your everyday person. These were the guys who had the most to lose. These are the guys who put it all on the line. These weren't average people. These are the movers and shakers of economics and society and business and banking and agriculture. These are the people who had everything to lose and freedom to gain. How many of you, close your eyes. I'm not going to, I can't see you anyway. Close your eyes. They just put this in front of you, this Declaration of Independence in front of you. How many of you would sign it? Knowing full well that you are first on the list to be made an example of. To lose everything. To have your homes burned, ransacked, your family destroyed, your fortune destroyed. How many of you would sign this and sign your death warrant? It's hard to answer that. It's easy, hard in one way if you're thinking at the time. It's easy because we know how it turned out. So right now, oh yeah, I'd do it. No, but it wasn't. We were taking on the mightiest army and navy in the world. This ragtag bunch of soldiers led by someone named George Washington. How many of you would have signed not knowing the outcome? Not knowing you could lose everything. Some of these guys, like I said, lost their lives. They lost their families' lives. Their wives were killed. Their sons were killed in the Revolutionary War. Their homes were ransacked, looted, burned. One guy, for the life of me, I cannot remember right now who it is. Forgive me, because I love the story. But he lent this new nation, or this rebellious nation, his entire fortune, with a promise that he'd get paid back. That's a big promise. You're not even sure you're going to win. What odds do you think our colonists got when they were going to take on the mightiest army and navy in the world? Not very good odds. He died broke. He never got his money back. Now that's putting your money where your mouth is. That's dying and living for an ideal. We complain if we have to wait more than 10 minutes to vote. In this book, this is my textbook that I use. In this book, I'm talking about elections. There's a picture of elections in South Africa and the line people are waiting in, because for many years blacks couldn't vote in South Africa, apartheid, and finally when they were able to, they waited hours in line in order to vote. We complain if we have to wait more than 10 minutes for our Burger King. We complain if we have to, wait in line for Space Mountain too long. These people in South Africa who had not had the right to vote were finally granted the right to vote, and they cherished it. And they waited in line for hours and hours. I'm not going to vote. It takes too long. I'm not going to vote. I don't want to go over there to the school. And these guys sign their own death warrant, and you can't wait 15 minutes to vote? How pathetic are we? How sad are we? We were given this most just, not perfect, the most just, the most generous, the most economically powerful, the most militarily powerful, the most generous nation on earth when it comes to helping people out in the rest of the world. When there's a tsunami, when there's an earthquake, when there's anything, not just our government, but the people of this country who are so blessed and who are so appreciative of what we have, that we help out in great amounts of money, donating to help. We have all this given to us without any risk to our life, fortune, or sacred honor, and we waste it. We waste it by not paying attention, by knowing who the Kardashians are, but not who our senators are. By watching reality and ignoring reality shows and ignoring reality. We are a pathetic people. These guys pledged their fortune, their lives. Some lost it. Their fortunes, a lot of them suffered greatly economically. I hold that they kept their sacred honor. I hold that not one of these guys, not one of these men recanted. Not one of these men took their signature back. They kept the sacred honor. And we piss it away. By our pathetic, we're like a cat with a laser pointer. Anything that comes along, oh, what's that? Oh, 6, 7. And we don't know who our senators are. We don't know who our representative is. We don't know who our governor is. How pathetic is that? How sad is that? These people put everything on the line, and we don't want to wait in line. One of the reasons I started Governminute was because I wanted people to know this. I wanted people to know it doesn't take forever. It doesn't take half plus one to get anything done. It takes a committed group of people that care, not just for themselves, but for their kids and their grandkids. I want my grandkids, my kids are pretty much grown, but I want them to have the same opportunities I had. I want my grandkids to have the same opportunities I had. But we're too busy virtue signaling and canceling people instead of paying attention to what our government is doing to us. You know what our founding fathers would think of what our government is doing to us now? Surveillance and, police state tactics and what freedom of speech is being taken away, not by our government, but by society. Why don't we fight back? Why don't we just say, you know what, that's your opinion, good for you, but I have mine. We've pushed God out of our public square, of our schools, and we've suffered greatly for that. We have not done well since that. Our education sucks. The payoff to the teachers union with the Department of Education. Oh, got the teachers union some money, some power. But our kids are left in its wake. Our students have no work ethic because they're not made to do anything. And so I want you to find a copy of the Declaration of Independence. I want you to find it online, find it in a book, whatever, and read those names to yourself. And realize what they did for us. And realize what they sacrificed, what they offered up, what they lost, so we could have it easy, so we could have a say in how our government is supposed to act. Most Americans are sadly misinformed or ill-informed or not informed at all about anything going on. And most people live in happy ignorance, ignorant bliss, until it gets to the point where government is now running roughshod over you. Some people want government to give them everything. But if government gives it to you, what can they do? Take it away. Government is not the solution. You are the solution. I am the solution. We are all the solution. To make our employees that we employ several years at a time, we give a job to a U.S. representative for 2 years at a time. They apply every 2 years. See if we like the job they're doing. Oh, well, he brings home a lot of money, so yes. What about the fact that he or she votes to increase our deficit year after year, which increases the debt year after year? For you, from you. So we don't interview them. We just, they've been at the job, they deserve it. 94, 95% of them get reelected with very little trouble. Would you let an employee in your business, the business you owned, act like this? Behave like this? Not balance a budget like this? Would you? If you would, you're not going to have a business very long. But you see, the government doesn't have any competition, so no one else can be the government. Did these people start acting badly because we stopped paying attention? Or did we just get so fed up with what they're doing we stopped paying attention? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? I tend to think they started behaving badly because we let them. I tend to think they realized, hey, no one's watching the hen house, so let's go get some hens. The foxes said, let's go get some hens. I think that these people realize there's no real consequence to what they do. I think these people realize that there's nothing that's going to punish them for what they do. Epstein, trillions of dollars in debt, deficits as far as the eye can see, an education system that is failing our students and our nation, and a government that is too big and that does too much. The Constitution of the United States is very clear. I'm not going to go over every single word, obviously. I only got 12 minutes. But the Constitution of the United States, I read the preamble to you. It's very simple. Article 1 talks about the legislative powers, the powers that the Congress has, the legislative power of government, the power to make laws. And it's very simple. And they talk about how the House of Representatives is composed, how the Senate is composed, et cetera, et cetera. And then in section 8, I believe. Yes. The Congress shall have the power to, then it reads out what they have the power to do. Lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. They have the power to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. And all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. They have the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States. They've done a bang-up job on that, haven't they? They have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states. They have the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, how to become a citizen, uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. They do that so that all the deadbeats don't go to one state. So it's the same to declare bankruptcy everywhere. They have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof, and fix the standards of weights and measures. An acre in Texas is the same as an acre in Rhode Island. We just have a lot more. They have the power to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. Coin includes bills, the Supreme Court said. They have the power to establish post offices and post roads. They have the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing, for limited time, to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their writings and discoveries. Basic copyright and patents. They have the power to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. The Constitution only created the Supreme Court. All other federal courts were created by Congress. They have the power to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the laws of nations. They have the power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. President does not declare war. Only Congress can do that. The last time we had a declared war was World War II. They have the power to raise and support armies. They have the power to provide and maintain a navy. They have the power to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. They have the power for provide for calling forth the militia to execute laws of the Union. They have the power to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia. They have the power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over the District of Columbia. They have the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. Okay, some people stop right there. That's it. That's the last thing they have the power to do. Sounds like today, isn't it? That's all they do, right? Those are the only things they do, right? Everything else is unconstitutional. No matter how you feel about Social Security, it's unconstitutional. I read nothing in here about Social Security, about providing for people in old age. Nothing. Yet we do it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying, why are we doing it? It's unconstitutional. Department of Education, look around. You can look for the word school, academics, teacher, professor, student, pupil, desks, books, chalkboard, anything. It's not in there. And yet we have a Department of Education spending, what did I say, $79, $80 billion a year? We have a lot of things we do that aren't in here, that we weren't given the power to do. And remember the Articles of Confederation we talked about, felt like 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, maybe, how it was so limited, because that's what our founding fathers intended, a very limited government. And we do way too much and spend too much these days. Now, some people say the Congress shall have the power, it says that, Congress shall have the power, and it says to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. And people stop there. I had a little discussion once with a colleague of mine back at our old school. She was of a more liberal bent. And she goes, what about the necessary and proper clause? I said, what about it? She goes, it says they should have the power to make all laws necessary and proper. You blooming idiot. You stop reading there. Read more. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper, that's where she stopped, for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, the powers listed that I just read off to you, and all other powers vested by this Constitution and the government of the United States. It wasn't a blank check. Pass any law you want if you think it's necessary and proper. It was pass laws which shall be necessary and proper to carry into execution the things I read to you, that they have the power to do, that it says they have the power to do. And now we have a government that thinks they can do anything it wants. Government, I don't know if you remember the steroid scandal back in the day with Roger Clemens and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire. The Senate was having hearings on steroids in baseball. Yet we were running a deficit. Yet we're trillions of dollars in debt. And they're worried about steroids in baseball. Read it, senators, congressmen. Find out what you're supposed to do. Not worry about baseball. Get a life. Okay, Article 2 talks about the executive power of the president. Article 3 talks about the judicial power of the United States, Supreme Court, etc., etc. Article 4 talks about full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. I got married in Texas. I'm married in all 50 states. Okay, if we move to Pennsylvania, I don't have to get remarried in Pennsylvania because my marriage license from Texas is valid in every state. That's full faith and credit. My birth certificate, I don't have to be born again if I move somewhere else. My Texas birth certificate is enough. If you have life insurance for someone and they pass away, usually it's in Delaware or one of those states, you have to provide a death certificate to the insurance company to get the payout for the life insurance proceeds. You don't have to take the body up there for them to say, oh yeah, they're dead. Okay, full faith and credit. Full faith and credit. Public act, records, and proceedings. If you're convicted in Texas of something and you run to New Mexico, they're going to bring you back. The New Mexican authorities will help bring you back to Texas because you were convicted and you need to serve your prison sentence. Article 5 talks about amending the Constitution. It's only been amended 27 times. 2 of them had to deal with the same thing, with Prohibition and the repeal of Prohibition. Easy to remember for trivia night. The 18th, you're an adult when you're 18, okay? But you can't drink now till you're 21 in every state. You know how that happened? I'm running out of time, wow. You know how that happened? Back in the day, back when I was 18, the drinking age was 18. So in October, I turned 18 and I was able to drink. Not a big drinker, I didn't care, but I could. Good margarita every once in a while, not a bad deal. All right, the following September 1st, our state passed a law which made the drinking age 19. So from October until September 1st of the next year, I was legal. From September until my birthday in October, I was illegal, and then I was legal again. And then by the time I turned 21, it was over. I was 21 when they passed it, made it 21. So how do all states get to where you can fight for your country, you can enter into a contract, but you can't drink? The national government blackmailed the states with money and said, if you don't pass your drinking age 21 at the state level, we are going to withhold federal funds for your highways. And all good little states doing things for money, what does that sound like? Doing things for money, all the states lined up and made their drinking age 21 except Louisiana. Go figure, right? Louisiana or Nevada, right? Louisiana held out the longest, but after a while their highways were in such poor shape that, they bent the knee to the national government and said, okay, well, it's 21 now, and they got the money. Okay. So anyway, to amend the Constitution, it's described how to amend the Constitution. Article 6 of the Constitution talks about the debts contracted into and engagement entered into before the adoption of the Constitution shall be valid. Okay, in other words, whatever the Articles of Confederation came up with in debt or whatever, we're good for it. Article 7 talks about the ratification or the okay of the states to okay the Constitution. The ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for establishment of this Constitution. So that's what the Constitution's about. I urge you to read that as well. Most people haven't. You should. You should know the playbook. This is the playbook between the states and the national government. Okay. Oh, one amendment you need to pay real close attention to. Two amendments, I'm sorry. Amendment 9 talks about the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In other words, there's no way we could have made this Constitution list every right the sovereign people of this country have. We would end up with an encyclopedia. So just because it's not listed here doesn't mean people don't have other rights. That's what Amendment 9 says. Now, the Constitution was very clear on the division of power, the limitations of government. But just to make sure that people understood, they passed the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment, I'm going to read it and then I'll explain it. The 10th Amendment says, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. Okay. If it doesn't say the national government has the power to do this, and it doesn't say state governments can't do this, it belongs to the states or the people. End of story. Very clear, very, very well written, and very clear about what is allowed and what's not allowed. And that's where I bring up the Department of Education. What the Department of Education had, created in 1979. Read it, find anything about education, anything in there. You can't. So the 10th Amendment says if it's not given to the national government or denied to the states, it belongs to the states or the people. We need to get rid of the stupid Department of Education that does nothing except take tax money and waste it. 10th Amendment supports me. What do you defenders of of the Department of Education have in your corner? I'm waiting. Please tell me. You don't. That's what it comes down to. You don't. You have no valid legal reason to have the Department of Education, and it should be disbanded tomorrow and the money returned to the people or to the states to use in their own education systems, because that is a state issue with many other things. I'm seeing I have 25 seconds left. Yeah, I have a second camera on here. So I want to thank everyone who tuned in at any point today. Thank you so much. I had fun. I'm going to go get a big old bottle of water here in a minute and enjoy it. Thank you so much. I hope you can comment. Hope you maybe send an email. Tell me what you thought, and maybe we'll do it again. So if not, I will see you when I post more videos pretty soon. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Good night, and God bless America.